transmissions the next 4 hours. And there's more InfoWars transmissions coming up after that. There's so much to cover today, but there's a new talking point that Trump is turning America into North Korea. ABC News, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. And we're going to be breaking all that down today. Pence says the U.S. to unveil the most aggressive North Korea sanctions ever. And now North Korea officially says they fear a preemptive bloody nose. So that is going to be broken down today. Bull or bear, all eyes on the U.S. markets as they gyrate up and down wildly. That's coming up as well. But first, a report from John Bowne on the North Korea crisis.
Nobody really needs, as the opening ceremonies for the 2018 Winter Olympics are set to take place on Friday. U.S. Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood told the forum at the Geneva talks that North Korea was only months away from attaining the capability to strike the United States with a nuclear-armed ballistic missile. Although Wood said he had no new information to share when asked about what he was basing his claims on. Wood also labeled North Korea's latest South Korean show of diplomacy as a charm offensive.
The situation on the Korean Peninsula has not changed. The regime continues work on its ballistic missile and nuclear programs. What I would call charm offensive, frankly, is fooling no one.
And now the DPRK is frantically warning that a preemptive bloody nose attack by the United States is imminent. Al Jazeera reported Young Chul said U.S. officials, including the defense secretary and the CIA director, repeatedly talked about a DPRK nuclear and missile threat to justify their argument for a military option and a new concept of a so-called bloody nose. Meanwhile, Guam sits under the most imminent threat of an attack by the DPRK.
The people of Guam are proud to host the continued bomber presence and one leg of the nuclear triad with the recent addition of the B-2 and B-52 bombers. Considering the bomber presence and as the westernmost territory of the United States, Guam holds vital strategic bases, and I'm happy to see the department place a THAAD system to aid in its defense. However, in your strategy, you call for investment on layered missile defense from North Korean threats. Considering our strategic importance, is Guam adequately defended from theater missile threats, and how do you intend to bolster these defense systems in the future?
Well, we will continue bolstering them to keep pace with the threat out of North Korea. As you know, besides the THAAD system, ma'am, we also keep the Aegis, the ballistic missile defense, U.S. Navy warship in the waters out there, and we can always reinforce that. We also have several of those ships in Japanese waters right now, and they can move back and forth to include coverage of Guam in the mobile way that comes to our Navy. But we are looking at all the systems to include Aegis ashore as we look toward the future protection of our Pacific area.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. I think we've talked about this. Just keep Guam in a secure position and keep all the bombers and everything else you have there for a while anyway.
And as the Winter Olympics create a veneer of diplomacy, a new U.S. ambassador to South Korea has yet to be nominated after the previous nominee, Dr. Victor Cha, will no longer be considered after he criticized the Trump administration's threats to back out of a bilateral trade agreement with Seoul. So how imminent is this threat? Well, The Hill reports last year the DPRK tested a ballistic missile that experts believe is capable of reaching the U.S. mainland, though the country isn't believed to be able to mount a nuclear device on the missile. Experts say North Korea is close, however, to reaching that milestone. John Bowne reporting for Infowars.com.
Yesterday, I intend to play it again at the start of the next segment, with the president addressing a large crowd, threw down the gauntlet. And he simply said the truth, that the Democratic Party are the enemies of an American recovery. They are treasonous, and they're out to get the American people. And I was thinking about that line in that song, Lynn Greenwald, I think's his name, where he talks about proud to be an American, and the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I remember growing up hearing that and thinking, I love America, but that's a little cheesy. But as you get older, you learn that's how criminals operate, is that once they get control, they want to take everything away from you. And modern liberals are just criminals. And studies show that. Depending on the study, 6 to 9 times more likely, British, U.S. studies, Canadian studies, by liberal universities, by the psychology departments, that they're way meaner, give way less charity, and steal. And it's because they're weak. And so when they get in positions of power, they seek to divide everybody, to control everybody, to dumb everybody down because they feel weak and they want to manage them. So a leftist, modern leftist, which is really just a mentally ill criminal with a psychology of crime, a twisted algorithm of sustaining themselves. They seek to play the victim at the low level, to guilt those around them under their control. It's really a sign of immaturity as well. It's an arrested development. Everybody knows spoiled, rotten children will try to guilt you into doing what they want. Everybody knows that spoiled, rotten children, when studied in the main, are the same around the world, that they hatch little plots and devious manipulations. Instead of just going out and boldly leading and being successful, and on its face, you got a pretty good idea growing up in school who's going to end up being steadfast, who's going to be successful, who's going to be stalwart, who's going to be inventive, and who's going to be corrupt, and who's going to be evil. And you can also tell who's going to fight, who the warriors are. And the system seeks to arrest the development of individuals so that they can control them throughout their lives in like an endless junior high eddy pool or Groundhog Day of control. So before we get into all this news, I thought it critical, absolutely critical, to talk about the psychology of these people. And just that line, the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. When I saw MSNBC and CNN and all of the different channels over and over and over again saying, you can't have a family, you can't have a church, and you can't like people that are in the military. And I can see the old American instinct to not want to have troops on the streets and not want to be under martial law. I certainly understand that. But they're saying you can't even have it. You can't even respect anybody that's doing that because, you see, it shows what globalist outsiders they are and how they're committed to overthrowing the country. And so we need the other side of that. After 18 years, since 1991, we've not had a military parade in this country. And Trump says the Russians have them, the French have them, the British have them. But see, as a globalist, George Herbert Walker Bush wanted to use our military to break up the Middle East and take over areas and start the clash of civilizations, destabilization. But then he wanted to make it a UN operation and make our military itself shameful. So part of taking America back is having a wall, is having visas, is having sovereignty, and is supporting the men and women who've served in our military and who serve in it now, not because you're in a cult of worshiping the military, but because you understand the globalists want to take that away from you and demoralize the nation so we can be controlled. And everything Trump's doing is to stop the demoralization. And he's been critical of the NSA spying. And he's talking to William Binney through the CIA director about a system that doesn't spy on everybody, that actually uses algorithms when somebody really travels here, really makes these statements, and then you have human intelligence and it's all integrated and it works 1,000 times better than scanning everything, which is really just used for political control. So I know for a fact Trump's even moving us in the right direction that way. And not wanting to have a bunch of nation building. And Trump was critical of the bill, but as they said, it was tied to all the spending. And he said, my hands are tied until we reform this system, because that's the system that is in place, hundreds of billions of dollars. And they've got my hands tied, saying terrorists are going to kill us any minute if we don't turn this thing off. Well, we're moving to put something in that actually works from the original guy that actually built what became this monstrosity, William Binney. He's the engineer, the big mastermind. They admit, even his enemies, that developed all this, and they took it away and said, we're going to use it to surveil everybody. And he started saying, you're insane. Number one, that means you won't be able to track all the real threats when you look at everybody and everything constantly. All that is used for is total control. But Trump has a long way to go on the surveillance, and he knows he's been targeted with it as well. But the idea that we can't even have a military parade to celebrate whether you support all these wars or not, how long these people have served, the longest serving military on average in world history. 20 tours, 30 tours. My cousin was in the Army because he got extended 37 years. And was deployed for over 25 years of it in combat zones all over the world. He, of course, volunteered and wishes they'd put him back in, but his back's completely disintegrated from jumping out of helicopters and carrying all those packs. He's about 6 inches shorter than when I was a teenager. But it's just insane that you can't ever have that because the media said so. Just like I've got stacks of articles where they're saying you can't say mother and father, you can't say family, you can't say he or she. That hurts someone else who isn't a he or she. That's pure biological warfare. The globalists admit it's to target the family, which they said on MSNBC last week and CNN you can't have, and Trump shouldn't have talked about family. And Trudeau goes, we're people kind, not mankind. And that's just the beginning, you see, of how it starts. He's the prime minister putting out the soft pedal, but down at the school level, they're telling children in Canada, nationwide, they're doing it in spots here, that you're purple penguins. There are no boys or girls. Talk about trying to whack job people. That's how you depopulate, and that's even in the news. That's coming up. They admit, oh, transgenderism's great. There won't be any people. See, it's not about the transgenderism starts with men that want to be women or vice versa, and then it becomes transhumanism. That's how they set up the idea of you can't criticize giving up your humanity and identifying as a fire hydrant if you want. It's mainlining mental illness.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Big developments with the ongoing drip of devastating information coming out, dealing with the whole situation that is unfolding around the Clinton criminal cabal inside of the stay-behind networks put in place by the Clintons, the Obamas, and others in the FBI and the Justice Department. And we're going to be covering that coming up some in the next segment. We're going to get to the latest on North Korea, fearing a preemptive bloody nose, and so much more. And I will today get to important news reports coming out of the UK where they are openly on television saying any criticism in public or online of transgenderism should be banned and outlawed. And then the reporter says back to the other reporter, but then that would ban you being able to be critical of me. And they're like, oh, no, we'll still be able to, basically. So the lady is then speechless. It's an amazing video. It's up on Infowars.com, and that is going to be coming up as well. It's also on Newswars.com. Incredible. Professor's defense of free speech leaves regressive leftists literally speechless. Paul Joseph Watson article on Infowars.com. And I'm going to totally decode today what the entire transgenderism situation is about. We're also going to have Tommy Robinson on from the UK, where Muslims threaten to kill him and his family online, even say who they are, and the police won't do anything, so he tracks them down and goes to their house and confronts them. And when you realize that 80% of the Muslims in the UK are on welfare and are like spoiled brats and self-propelled stomachs, it's just amazing to see people that come from third world hellholes getting so angry at the countries that have rolled out the red carpet to them. It makes the head spin. So that's going to be coming up today as well. And it ties in to the program to bring down the West. If something's destructive, if something's coercive, if something causes disunity, if something refuses to assimilate, then it is brought in. If it's constructive, it's blocked, it's sabotaged. That's the plan. It's the same thing with food. It's the same thing with the water. It's the same thing with everything. We are targeted by the Ubermenschens, by the globalists who believe that they are the supermen, and because they're not supermen and they're not better than us, they have to mutate us and attack us and make us dumb so they can suddenly be super. Because if they're a bunch of hunchbacked, inbred, psychopathic, neurotic, paranoid, so-called elitist, alpha scum, alpha maggots, then they have to make us below them to raise themselves. True ugliness, true spiritual ugliness, true intent hate. To take everything that we are and put it in a meat grinder for their sick pleasure. And I know I harp on this, despite the fact I've got hundreds of articles, 20, 30 incredible video clips. I just have to keep explaining to everybody, and I'll get to the clip next segment. I said I get to it this segment, but we're going to pull it up, of Trump that I played yesterday, talking about how the Democrats are treasonous and how they're out to sabotage and out to hurt everybody. If you looked at the sullen collection of scum on the Democratic side of the aisle when they were refusing to stand for the veterans, for anything, if you looked at their attitudes during the entire State of the Union, it was mind-blowing. The sullenness, the hate, the petulance, the immaturity, mixed with a crypt keeper physiology, bodies, like reanimated corpses, zombies. The only light in their eyes, that of a dull wish to drag us down with them. It's metaphorical. Why do the zombies want brains? Because they don't have it. A bunch of stuffed peacocks, self-important manipulators who are total culture manipulators. And know they are. We're going to go to break and come back with all of that straight ahead. You know, we're rolling out new products every couple of weeks here at InfoWars because there are hundreds and hundreds of staple high-quality supplements out there that we can go to the biggest manufacturers, the highest quality, and then put it out and discount it direct to you. And then you can fund our operation, which then promotes freedom and true diversity and true security.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
I want to, right out of the gates here, before I get into the latest situation with the deep state trying to kill the recovery and take Donald Trump out of office and then federalize the elections, we'll never really have another free election again after that. Before I do that, I wanted to just play this clip again. I don't normally play clips 2 days in a row, but the president talking about the Democrats obstructing our recovery, really out to get us, and the fact that they are really engaged in treason. Because it's one thing to have your political views. It's another thing to try to overthrow the American system and have a revolution against it and bring in the failed system that all these other countries have had, but that helps the elites that crave total control. The people that want cults of power. So here is the president.
But I said you have the lowest black unemployment in the history of our country. It was like, it was a game. You know, they play games. They were told, don't even make a facial movement. And I'm talking about you have the lowest Hispanic unemployment in the history of our country. This isn't me saying, this is the charts, the polls. We have the lowest in the history of our country. Dead silence, not a smile. In fact, there was one guy, when I said the lowest African-American unemployment, he was sort of clapping. Like, who was that guy? He's a nice guy. I think he was a reverend. And he was, I wouldn't say it was exactly arousing, but he was putting his hands together. And I want to find out who he is. I'm going to send him a letter of thank you. And he was probably severely reprimanded. Don't you think, Rob? I think so, because he was the only one. So that means they would rather see Trump do badly, okay, than our country do well. That's what it means. It's very selfish. And it got to a point where I really didn't even want to look too much during the speech over to that side, because honestly, it was bad energy. No, it was bad energy. You're up there, you've got half the room going totally crazy, wild. They loved everything. They want to do something great for our country. And you have the other side, even on positive news, really positive news like that, they were like death and un-American. Un-American. Somebody said treasonous. I mean, yeah, I guess why not? You know, can we call that treason? Why not? I mean, they certainly didn't love our country very much. But you look at that, and it's really very, very sad. So we have to keep it going because this country is turning, and it's turning much faster. And I said I'm going to do it, but it's happening faster than I thought.
And they are really, really angry, and I can feel their anger that they don't have this country in a total stranglehold anymore. Speaking of stranglehold, before I get into the latest FBI fiasco, we'll get into the Dow Jones. It's up 200 points today. The Democrats are trying to force a vote on the Dreamers. They want total capitulation, completely wide open borders, with the State Department under the control of the United Nations, as it already was until Obama got out of office. They want that system set back up. They want to basically have the U.S. under the UN's refugee control system, where it was dictating to the State Department who was let in, and it was vetting who could be let in, including people on Interpol terror watch list. Because remember, in Sweden and Germany and France, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, but particularly in the United Kingdom, it's been back in the news this week, they are bringing in hundreds. It was 400 just last month, the British news is reporting. 400 plus former jihad fighters who'd invaded Syria, and they're now coming back into England because they either previously lived there or are being allowed in, even though they are admitted ISIS members, and they're being given free housing And welfare and all these goodies, Paul Watson covered this yesterday, and pensioners are being thrown out of their government housing and being told to move in with their children to make room, and they are doing all sorts of other horrible things. And, of course, that's a whole nother report on 400 British ISIS jihadists returning. There's a whole other article about 400 plus, just completely unvetted, many of which are ISIS fighters. That's a whole separate headline they found. Wow, just so many, I can't even keep track of it anymore. So it just shows the total commitment to destroy the West and make it unlivable. So speaking of tyranny and speaking of treason, aren't you glad you don't live under the unelected European Union that no one knows how it just appeared? Well, actually, we do, but the general public doesn't in the UK or Europe. They're learning about it thanks to independence parties that are taking over. In 1947, they had the Treaty of London that agreed to steel concessions and for a treaty on basically rebuilding Europe's steel industry, and that would have the governments work together. Off of that body, they began to transfer power to it so that when politicians left or lost office, if they had been good traders to France or Germany or England, they would then get a position on those corporate boards that were paid for by the big robber barons. And so from 47 with the Treaty of London, then in 56, they had the Treaty of Rome that really created the European Union, the European Economic Community. And then in 2000, they just suddenly announced, we're the EU, yay, and fireworks. And the countries, none of them voted to enter it. And so they finally went, well, then let's vote to get out. That was the Brexit, and they're still trying to get the face sucker off. But isn't that illustrative of how did Juncker, the grandson of the head Nazis, how is his dad was a top Nazi, how is Juncker suddenly running everything? Well, because he's a top Nazi, and that's what they do. They run things. Just like Soros. They're like, man, you killed thousands of your fellow Jews. You're a good guy. We're going to hire you to help run the New World Order. He's like, Hail Hydra. Because it was never about Hitler. It's all about power and pure evil. Oh, yeah. Bezos is the richest guy in the world. No, Juncker and people like him, no one knows, okay? But Juncker owns Luxembourg, the richest country per capita in the world, the most elite tax haven on the planet. Juncker owns it. Why? Because his grandfather had paratroopers jump in and take it over. So that's why he told Trump, we will defeat you a year ago. Well, guess what? You got your ass handed to you, smiley face. That big old buzzard nose you got sticking in our business. So here's the new article on newswars.com from them, that secret EU army we first reported on 10 years ago. They've made it public last year, and now they're announcing if you try to leave, we'll roll in. EU threatens force against countries refusing migrants. That's right. The EU says if you don't let the Muslim invaders come in, 80+% military-aged men will use force. They already are threatening $1 million to 100,000, 100,000 to €1 million fine if you don't accept military-aged men into your country who all seem to have their own Facebook accounts bragging about how many people they killed, sometimes posing with dead bodies or women they've captured who they're selling into slavery. Oh, yeah, it's in the news. Oh, you actually sold women to sex slavery and you're on tape executing people? Baby, we want you. And what's the Green Party say? They came out and they told the women in Cologne, a bunch of them got raped. The mayor, who's the Green Party head in that state, by the way, not just mayor, she said, don't wear short dresses, sweetheart. She said, don't wear short dresses and go around together in groups or wear rape bracelets. But more on the article, European globalists are preparing to force Central European nations to accept mandated migrant quotas and open borders, according to Hungarian Prime Minister. And then it goes on from there that he has been notified that they will just take control of his borders, which they've been saying they'll do. They've been threatening Italy. If Italy stops the Zodiac boats that George Soros funds publicly, bringing in thousands every few days into Italy, they said, we'll stop your ships.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
did something that just shows what a marketing genius, not just a great engineer, he is. He fired one of his rockets into orbit with an attempt to have it send its payload to Mars. They overshot, so it's going towards the asteroid belt. If it makes it through the asteroid belt, it'll go on to Jupiter. So it's on a trajectory out towards Jupiter. It'll probably miss Jupiter and then going out one day towards the Kuiper belt. So incredible footage that we've got. If you're a radio listener, obviously, I'm describing this for you, but I didn't really see a hat tip to the 1980s animated film Heavy Metal that you just heard Sammy Hagar, who provided some of the music for that, where they actually play, well, it's not that song that we just did, but that's in the movie. It's called The Ride, and it looks just like it, exactly the same way, with, I think it's a Corvette in space, and that's been launched into orbit. So I thought I would just give you the news behind the news, the story behind the story. I was just made aware of this morning. I knew the rocket launched and had some stunt to promote the new Tesla car, but I did not realize that it was so cool. But they played David Bowie music, and I like David Bowie. Don't get me wrong. But if you're going to do it, you need to go with the original music. When you're even the same white spacesuit, it being a convertible, I mean, it is directly out of the movie Heavy Metal. And I get so busy going around shouting orders around here this morning that probably got lost in translation, as I said, put the theme of Heavy Metal to that. But just for my OCD, which I've developed later in life, can we play the actual ride that we use as intro music so people can hear the actual music that goes with this? We have that in the computer, correct? I want to play that just whenever you're ready. I want to just have that here on air because, yes, here we go. Maybe now roll the video in the background. We're going to make it work. One with a flamethrower. Without even looking, I said, order me too, because everything Musk does is so cool. I mean, I don't like hybrid cars and all this stuff, but I mean, the gorgeous car is really nice. Leading the way. I mean, the Volt was like, they couldn't even give them away. They were so ugly and so stupid. But Musk puts out this baby flamethrower that would be the igniter on a real napalm spewing flamethrower. And then I looked online, and sure enough, for fire breaks and stuff, they've got real consumer flamethrowers that shoot 30 to 40 to 50 feet and are absolutely incredible that anybody can buy for the same price as Elon Musk. Now, that's one that it looks like somebody made. There was a particular company that sells tons of them that we're going to get on that actually has real flamethrowers. Okay? But we're going to be, obviously, having a little fun with that. And just because it's so important, I'm going to shoot a special report with that intro and just talk about how people need to have vision, how humans need to try to build, and also how art is the heart of projecting science and technology and culture into the future, and that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Let me just mention this now, and then after Mr. Robinson leaves us at the bottom of the next hour with his incredible travails and adventures in the former UK, now London stand, now greater Middle East, greater Central Asia, with the new visitors screaming, "Get out, you're inherently evil," or convert to Islam. So we're going to kill your whole family. And the police will do nothing. And acid attacks, 7 a day or whatever. But don't worry, the EU again threatens force against countries refusing the invaders. European globalists are preparing to force Central European nations to accept mandated migrant quotas and open borders, according to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who's their Donald Trump. Following a meeting with fellow party officials, PM Orban posted a short video on Facebook summarizing the threat leveled by Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel at Hungary and allied governments vowing to stand firm in defense of European civilization and Christianity. The presidency as discussed yesterday, the announcement by the Belgian Prime Minister that they will, if necessary, use force, obligate Central European countries, including Hungary, to accept migrants. Orban said, according to their plan, this will be in June at the summit of the Prime Ministers in Brussels. And they have already threatened Italy to stop using its navy last year. And the EU in December called for its own navy to counter the Italians after they got a couple million people the last decade. And now it's accelerating out of North Africa, the Middle East. I mean, boatloads arrive, and it's like Twilight Zone, man. And I was in Rome a couple of years ago, and the tour guide spoke perfect English. He was an archaeologist. He's actually a published author, he was a pretty successful archaeologist. His dad was really a famous archaeologist. I was looking the guy up, and he said, "You think this is bad?" He goes, "We had ISIS stabbings right outside of the Colosseum last year, just a couple of years ago," and he said, "Don't go out under any of the trees or in the grass. There's just people sleeping everywhere." He goes, "There's feces everywhere, and you could smell it." And, of course, it's just mind-blowing. So that's all coming up. And I'm going to get more into FBI lovers, the latest drip that's coming out. Text messages, Obama wants to know everything. And that was dealing with the investigation into Hillary, which they themselves handled specially and scuttled and told her she was not under investigation, that it was a staged event. That's come out in Congress. That was last year that came out. But we now have text messages saying, oh, he wants to know everything. Comey's briefing him. He wants to know everything. And, of course, there's other text messages Congress has alluded to where he wanted to know everything about Trump and had a war room in the White House where they were spying on everything the entire Trump command and campaign and companies were doing, trying to find something totally illegal, lied to get the search warrants, and they are threatening to release that information. Congress, of course, I said this weeks ago from our sources, but Congress said last week, this is going to embarrass Obama and that he gave the orders. Well, they have it all. And they're only going to burn these low-level people right now. That's kind of the old rule. Kind of burn the minions. Come on, you don't kill kings politically. You let them escape in case, Trump gets in trouble sometime. And so you don't get rid of him. It's a form of chivalry that I think is bad because it just, Hitler wasn't given that option and he shouldn't have been. Some argued he probably escaped. Whatever. These people don't need to be given options of escaping. They're not going to give us any quarter. And that's the thing you're not supposed to say. This is a big no-no when I get up here on air and I say, we have to put them all in prison. They're enemies. Because, they kill people for that. And I get it. I mean, they've stopped even threatening me because they know. I've explained to them so many times. I said, listen, you don't think I don't know this is dangerous. And I'm not doing this as a daredevil, walking tightropes or sticking my head in lions' mouths, just to sell tickets. I'm doing it because I'm not going to be a slave, and my children aren't going to be a slave to these scumbags, these demonic, filthy pieces of excrement. We'll be back. Stay with us.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
His politics, warning you about the globalist, and his great sense of marketing, launching a rocket payload with a new Tesla convertible to get billions of dollars of free advertising. But I tried to read and look. He did not give credit to the 1980s film Heavy Metal. So that's maybe he did, but that's because it's the exact spacesuit. I mean, it looks just like it. It's just an older Corvette, obviously. And it's amazing. I mean, that's the theme song, Ride, from the guy from the Eagles. I forget his name. And there it is. But now it's actually been done. So over the top. I was just given a quote. You have been quoted as saying that you are nauseatingly pro-American. Musk, yes, that's true. What do you mean? Musk, well, I think the United States is the greatest country ever exists on earth. And I think that it will be difficult to argue on objective grounds that it is not. I think the facts really point in that direction. It's the greatest force for good any country has ever been. There would not be democracy in the world if it were not for the United States. But, Putin said, stop only talking about your exceptionalism as if that gives you an excuse to do whatever you want. And they act like that was an anti-American statement. It wasn't an anti-American statement. Globalists have hijacked the country. They're using our name, our ingenuity, our inventiveness, our creativity, our real melting pot against us, and creating a balkanized honeycomb of divided and conquered people. We're all in our own little cells on the internet and everywhere else, in our own little bubbles. And Musk has been in these billionaire meetings like Bill Joy and a few others where they just talk about, can we just wipe these people out, man? We've got our hundreds of billions apiece. I don't want to sit here and want to, go to Colorado or Switzerland and have to look at people. Can we just release the bioweapon? And Dick Cheney wrote about that in Rebuilding America's Defenses. He said, it's time to release bioweapons on the Muslims. But just because a lot of the Muslims want to kill us, we're then going to use bioweapons to kill all of them? I mean, but see, that's where the talk's really gotten down to. No, I think we should stand against radical Islam, make them have a reformation, and reach out and not fund the most radical forms of it to keep the Muslims down. Because the West, that's one thing. Dick Cheney publicly wrote about killing all the Muslims. It was even in the Austin American Statesman. Very few publications picked it up. Just type in Dick Cheney wrote about race-specific bioweapons and their need to be developed for use. Of course, they've been developed. Your real problem killing Arabs with a race-specific weapon is they've got Caucasoid, they've got Asiatic, and they've used the scientific name, which just means black in Latin. That's racist, because science is racist. So because your average Arab is a hybrid of the three main human gene lines, you create a bioweapon for the Arabs, and you'll end up killing probably half of all the other groups. We'll be back. Is getting a lot deeper and a lot hotter. It's been brought up to a nice little boil now. And the little crabs and little lobsters that are the Democratic Party and the deep state are not looking too happy right now. In fact, they're starting to scream for their little political lives. And it couldn't be happening to a better group of miscreant, power-tripping, out-of-control, rogue criminals. They're not FBI agents. They're criminals. They're political hijackers. They're political terrorists. And now more emails, more text messages are drip, 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 drip coming out where, oh, baby, we're Comey's meeting with Obama tomorrow. He wants to do everything about Hillary investigation. Oh, baby, we shut that down real good. Yeah, she's going to be president. Oh, yeah. You could be director one day, sweetsies. And it's all coming out. Fox News is reviewing thousands. We've got a bunch of them. Congress has got them, and it's just nightmarish. And it's all there. Oh, baby, you're going to be so famous. I'm going to be too. 50,000 text messages to each other over a 2-year period. And they're the special agents that handled Strzok, the whole Hillary investigation. We know Comey gave her a letter saying the investigation's over. You won't be under oath. This is fake. This is fake part wasn't on there, but the investigation's over. This is just a formality. You will not be under oath. Here's a letter. You've been cleared. That's the criminality we're dealing with. Now, coming up later in the hour after Tommy Robinson leaves us, I'm going to get into the big enchilada here on air, and that is what is behind the whole transgenderism system and more, because you're going to want to know what's behind this. I mean, you already do from your own research and from what I've covered, but I want to specifically get into it and show how, as we said it was designed to do this particular thing, it's now admitted. It has nothing to do with a man thinking he's a woman or a woman thinking he's a man or a guy going to the National Health Service in the UK last month and, getting up in the stirrups. He's got a beard, tattoos, very muscular, hairy chest, the nurse reported. And he said, I want you to check my cervix. She said, sir, you have a large male member. And that last I heard, they're looking to fire her. They said, it's like, listen, somebody wants bleach dumped in their eyes, blind them. That's also in the UK and the US. So this is not mental illness. These people are mentally ill, but who's mentally ill is the people that are going along with it. But the people that are programming it admit it is a plan to absolutely turn people into confused jellyfish who can be led to the slaughter. Now, continuing, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to shift gears to Tommy Robinson joining us, and this is such an incredible story. It's so thought-provoking. It's so illustrative. It's so crazy that I think only he can narrate it from the UK. Again, he's the leading individual for over a decade, raising the alarm about the Islamic invasion, about them grooming, in some even small towns, up to 4,000 girls for the sex trade, which is, I guess, the main Islamic pastime, even in the Middle East. Girls as young as 6. Turkey's moving to legalize having sex with 9-year-olds. I guess people like Quentin Tarantino that says as long as it's consensual, it's fine. And he likes Roman Polanski. I mean, I guess for people that are pro-pedophilia, I don't know if he is a pedophile, but I mean, I know he's defending a convicted pedophile. And that's Hollywood. So there's this weird leftist alliance with Islam, and I figured out, I think it's over the pedophilia, but and that's why the feminists love it, and top Islamists lead the women's marches, and the women put burqas on, and it's total Stockholm syndrome. It's like, it'd be like if you were anti-Nazi in World War II, saying you wanted to kill Winston Churchill, and he was a Nazi, but that you loved Hitler. It'd be like an anti-Hitler march, and Hitler leads it. And you go, hey, this doesn't make sense. And they go, shut up, patriarchy, we love Islam. So, joining us till about 45 after or so is Tommy Robinson, TommyRobinson.com. And, of course, he famously has Islamists attack him, and he fights back. And the media says he's bad, even though they attack him first. We probably show some of those photos and videos of him kicking a guy's ass. It was a lot bigger than his. Because not supposed to fight back. And they're hiring thousands of more police to go out and spy on nationalists, but nothing with the whole jihadis. But he's here to tell a story today that's very illustrative. Former English Defense League leader Tommy Robinson vows to help police track down racists within the organization and says he's sorry for scaring British Muslims. That's how they spun the whole thing. That's not what he's really saying there. But here's the big article I wanted to get to. Tommy Robinson tracks down Muslim who threatened to kill his family after police failed to. So that's the big thing. It's powerful video. We'll be rolling some of it coming up for radio listeners and TV viewers. But Tommy, how would you quantify this story? Because it's so incredible.
So for the last 9 years, I've received threat after threat after threat. Threats to kill me, threats to murder me. Now, whenever they're aimed at me, I'm bothered, but I'm not been as bothered. Now, then they start aiming them at my children and my wife. They're going to murder my children. This gentleman here said he's going to rape my daughter, chop her up. He's going to slaughter her throat. He's going to cut my mother. And for 9 years, I've gone to the police, and we have all these we have 900 police officers committed to dealing with threats in London, okay, for words. 900 police officers, and not once have they ever made an arrest. Now, what I do then is every time a threat comes in, I have to follow it up. I have to know if this person's serious. Now, this man here started making videos. He wasn't just tweeting things. He was making videos telling me what he's going to do to my family. I then tried to do it the right way again. I contacted the police. I put a reward up to find out his real identity. I then sat down with the police. I said, here's who he is. Here's what he's saying. The worry is, and I gave them examples of other mentally ill people and other Muslims that have done similar, and they've gone on to murder and cause jihad. I've had 6 Muslims who are in jail now serving 30 years who were on their way to kill me. They were stopped. Now, so when I give them I give the police all the information. All they have to do is go and pick him up. But then because I'm worried then because innocent people's addresses are being put online as my address by other far left agitators and far left activists. And so then I've gone and waited outside the man's house. And I've waited there thinking and hoping that he's already been arrested. This is 24 hours later. And I've sat there from 1 o'clock in the morning. And at 6:30 in the morning, his door opens, and out he strolls on his way to mosques for his first prayers. At that point, I got out, I went up to him, and I already had an inkling from his videos. I watched more than just the videos you're going to see. I looked into him, and I saw pictures of him, and I was questioning, is he mentally ill? Like, seriously mentally ill? Not just is he suffering from following Islam, does he have a serious other mental disorder other than
Well, there's
Islam?
also massive inbreeding, as you pointed out. I mean, he looks, I'm sorry to be mean, he looks like someone who's got serious chromosomal disorders. Please continue.
Yep. So then I found him, and I went up to him, and to be honest, Alex, this could have gone so wrong. And I question, the police have managed to get me. I'm on a contempt of court charge, which means if I do anything at all over the next 18 months, I go straight to prison for 3 months.
And you've already been in prison before, just to fill people in, where they let the Muslims mercilessly try to kill you.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Tracks down Muslim who threatened to kill him and his family when the police, after years of this, refused to do anything, claimed they had 4 different teams of officers on it. What they're busy doing is bringing in admitted ISIS fighters and giving them free welfare. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's all part of the globalist invasion. What's happening from Australia to the United States, to the UK particularly, to Belgium. Just a year ago, the media wouldn't admit no-go zones. Now they admit them everywhere. The police are saying there's no-go zones all over the UK, all over Europe. It's just so diabolical. And then George Soros is quarterbacking it with Peter Sutherland, who died 2 weeks ago, and Juncker, the heir of the Nazi fortune. You can't make this up. Here's a clip of just a few days ago when Tommy found this individual and confronted him. Here it is.
I done all of their job for them. Prior to sitting down and meeting with them, I found out and paid a reward to find out who the man was, where he lived, his real identity. They've got the evidence, as you can see. It's clear as day. He's threatening to murder and kill. That's a serious crime. All they have to do is go and pick him up.
We're in London and I had to do the police's job, which is what we done yesterday for them. So yesterday morning, I gave the police the man's name, his address, where he lives. That's where he lives over there.
So a day's gone by. I then have a duty. So I then decide to do whatever I need to do to protect my family and make sure that this man is taken off of our streets.
Ready, down. Get out. Yeah. Have you got mental health issues?
Yeah.
Right, so you're talking about killing my kids. How have I found you before the police have found you? How have I got you here before the police have found you? Where are you running to? I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. You're threatening to murder my children, bruv. I'm not going to hurt you, okay? If I want to hurt you, I'd already hurt you.
Okay.
I'm not going to hurt you. You're threatening to murder my children. How do you think, bruv, if you've got mental health issues, you need help, bruv. If that's the case, if you're standing in front of me now, yeah? Are you going to come to my house and hurt my family?
No.
So why are you saying it, kid?
Someone keep brainwashing.
Someone's brainwashing you, and I can tell someone's brainwashing. Who's brainwashed you?
Ali Dawah.
Ali Dawah's brainwashed you to kill my kids.
I got that from YouTube, actually. Someone said he'll kill someone and take his
Take his merchandise, like some Islamic.
Have an arm wrestle.
Can you have an arm wrestle? See, mate. Look, listen, bro.
Friendly one.
Friendly one. Look.
Oh my God.
Look, son, I can see.
Yeah.
See.
Pause for a minute.
On.
Tommy's taking the high road here, and he's a bigger expert on this than I am. But with these radical Islamicists, which is the orthodoxy, they brag that when they're actually confronted, they always go, friendly. No, I am your friend. I am only saying this to sell T-shirts, my friend. That's why all over the world, no Christians or Jews or anyone else is allowed to live in our countries. And we take your women and we rape and kill you. But I am your friend. I am mentally ill. And of course, probably is mentally ill under the brainwashing. I mean, so even when he lies, he tells the truth. I am brainwashed by Imam. Tommy Robinson, please continue.
So, I love your impression, Alex. But after a couple of minutes, I felt like I was talking to a 10-year-old. Now, I'd say I'm quite a good judge, and I'm not, and I know the same. Most of the time when I find people or see people who said they're going to beat me up or hurt me, they melt or their arse goes. With him, I generally believe, I believed and I found out now, because he's actually now sectioned in an assessment centre in London. He's previously been sectioned. He suffers from schizophrenia. But that doesn't make him less dangerous. That makes him as dangerous. And then the name he mentions, when he says Ali Dawah brainwashed him, Ali Dawah is a Muslim preacher in London who targets 14 to 16-year-old children. It's like a stepping stone. They go through him, then they go to the next one. Now, the most dangerous thing about this, which I believe the police probably intentionally left it like this, if I caught up with him, which I did, and they probably knew I was going to go and catch up with him, because if you read the stuff he said about my children, any father would go get him. But if that could have gone so wrong, he could have been carrying a knife. Now, my intention to go there was to citizen's arrest. If the police aren't going to arrest him, I'm taking him. And I'm going to drag him down the police station and bring him in there and say, you do something about him. So that was my intention, was to go and get him. When I did get him, I realised very quickly that he is mentally disturbed. From the arm wrestle comment, and if you watch him then, he actually has an arm wrestle me afterwards. And I felt then that I'd say he's a victim of Islam. I say most Muslims are victims of Islam. But the fact what that video doesn't show you is the first thing I said is, what do they teach you at mosque? And he said, they teach me to fear Allah. And he generally looked like a scared child. I said, so you've got a mentally disturbed person who's terrified of Allah. You then have preachers who tell him what Allah wants them to do, and then he's on an attack mission. Now, what I said is, even when the police turned up, it was a difficult one, because you see, that could have gone one or two ways. That could have gone the way where we're physically having it because of what he said and done, or the way it did go, which is that I didn't even want him arrested, to be honest. I spoke to the police today, and just to see, is he getting medical help? Because he is really not. I spent 20 minutes with him then, and I could tell by then. I then contacted people he went to school with who had told me the problems he had through the school time. He's not right. And you mix that with a Quran and a preacher of hate, and you've got an explosive mixture, which in the UK, we've had plenty of people like this. We had one called Nicky Riley, who was learning difficulties, highly autistic. They put a bomb on him and sent him into a restaurant.
Well, let's explain something here. I didn't know this until I talked to a family that are veterans and other people that have been in the Middle East. But it's also in Indonesia and everywhere. Wherever it's Muslims, you'll have a Christian area. Everybody's super smart, totally nice. And then you go in the Muslim area, and there's mentally retarded children everywhere. People have disorders. People look crazy. And it's inbreeding, just like the British royal family. The Queen has 4 or 5 siblings. Most of them have been locked up in mental institutions their whole lives. I've seen some photos of them. And you look at the Muslims, that's what they look like, is poor, sad people out of a old-fashioned sanitarium. So talk about the numbers. The final ingredient is the mental illness, the inbreeding, and then you find out in the Middle East and Central Asia, the imams and terrorists use the giant surplus of mentally retarded people they've got, but also schizophrenia, you name it, from the inbreeding to carry this out.
So 3% of the UK is Pakistani. They're responsible for 33% of child defects, from 3%. Of course, because they marry their cousins, of course, because Mohammed married his cousin, and he's the moral compass. So if he had sex with children, they can have sex with children. If he married his cousin, they can marry their cousin. If he decides to kill people, they can kill people. So, you see that hugely. And I have a friend who has an autistic child, and the whole entire school that his friend goes to of disabled children is all Muslim children. But so you're right, it's a dangerous mix. We've had 4 in the last 18 months, jihadi attacks, which have all been blamed on mental illness. Now, most of them, I don't accept, I don't believe. This gentleman, after meeting him, he was mentally retarded.
Well, but that's the secret of the radical Islamicists, is they use their giant surplus of inbreeding mainly causes schizophrenia, as everybody knows, and other issues, all sorts of disorders. And whereas these would be sweet children if they were raised sweetly, instead they become vicious killing machine robots, and then they just export their surplus, to us to then wage unholy jihad.
Well, the unbelievable thing for me about this is it was played out so publicly. His videos were there for the whole internet to see. We have officers who, if someone says something about a gay Olympian, like they did, the next day their door's kicked in. If someone said by the police, if someone says something about a politician, if someone mentions anything to do with race, they're arrested, they're prosecuted straight away.
We'll be back. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. From the Infowars.com studios, it's Alex Jones.
You know, the press is reporting that the new FBI text messages and things that have come out are bombshell, and they are. But they're not really bombshell to me. That's why I'm not really excited about it. It's why I'm not really covering it, because we already know. It's just going to be more evidence coming out. I've talked to congressmen on air, off air. I've talked to sources like Zach, who is high-level intelligence. He's popping in the next hour. And so I know what's in it. And I've talked about it, and I've told you. It's Obama and Susan Rice and all those folks in their spine on everything Trump did, letting Hillary have access to it, ordering the FBI to kill the investigation of Hillary, meeting secretly on tarmacs, promising Loretta Lynch a Supreme Court slot if she would kill the investigation of Hillary. Yeah, and the Clintons were dumb enough to talk about it, and their underlings bragged about it. So they've got those emails. And by the way, they got Hillary's emails. They're holding that in reserve in case they got to really fry them, because they don't want to damage the stock market of the country too much. I say release it all, man. They're in a thermonuclear political war with us. I say cry havoc, let loose the dogs of truth here, to butcher William Shakespeare's writings. We're going to go back to Tommy here in just a moment with the epic stuff he's up to. Such courage, such bravery. I have to tell you that there's nobody else like him doing the things he's doing. And he's a father. He's got children. It's very dangerous over in the UK. You've seen the videos where they attack his car savagely, and and then people attack him when he's out to see a concert with his family. There's video of that. And he fights back, and the media acts like it's bad that he even punches back. It's incredible. So I said I would get into the whole transgender agenda and the brainwashing of children, and I will do that. That's coming up at the bottom of the next hour, because I got behind here today. We're going to go back to Tommy Robinson here in just a moment. Just briefly, when I get up here and I hyperventilate, telling you we need you to buy products to fund our operation, it's because if you don't buy them, we won't be here. And you've been buying them, and you've been rebuying them and rebuying them, and so we're building this operation in the face of some stiff globalist opposition. They're not just in Congress saying shut us down in hearings. They're not just in undercover Google videos saying our main mission is to stop InfoWars. They're really scared of Paul Watson. That's come out in internal documents. If Paul realized his real power and we get more aggressive on air. I'm not complaining. I order Watson to get on air. I don't mean like a big shot. I've, cajoled him, tried to pay him more to do it. He doesn't even want more money. He just is totally dedicated to writing articles and being behind the scenes, but he's great on air. Point I'm getting at is, I explained to Paul, I said, they want to destroy you. And I said, if you don't become the individual you already are in the public eye, they want to know you, then they'll be able to destroy you if you're just a writer and just a guy on Twitter, or just a guy that puts out, three-dimensional videos. They need to see more of you. And he understands that now, that he's in an arena where big fish eat little fish. And they're trying to shut us down. And they're trying to shut Mr. Robinson down. And if they can hang him, they can hang us. We're going back to Mr. Robinson here in a moment. Cheryl Atkinson has come out. This is coming up next segment, and said, I've never seen media more uncurious about spying and how they're all a bunch of lapdogs, the globalists. And that dovetails with this Homeland in the Trump era tackles the deep state. This is so revealing out of the Hill, because the main villain on Homeland is yours truly, and I direct all the evil. They admit that. And then they had an article out yesterday saying, the main star will kick my ass. I better watch out. He's a boxer. You can't make
a spy. This requires an entirely different level of surveillance authority, the highest possible. And the completed FISA application requires approval through the FBI chain of command. It starts with the FBI field offices before making its way to FBI headquarters to get approval. Then it goes on to the Justice Department. Then the DOJ verifies the accuracy of every fact stated in the application. If anything looks unsubstantiated, the application is sent back to the FBI to provide additional evidentiary support. So it continues to go back and forth between the FBI offices and the DOJ until they are satisfied that the facts in the FISA application can both be corroborated and meet the legal standards for the court. Presentation of any such unverified material to the FISA court would appear to violate those crucial procedural rules. Yet former FBI Director James Comey allegedly signed 3 of the FISA applications on behalf of the FBI.
I was speaking to him and briefing him about some salacious and unverified material. Again, he was reacting strongly again to that unverified material, saying, I'm tempted to order you to investigate it.
The Woods procedures are named for Michael Woods, the FBI official who drafted the rules. They were instituted in April 2001 to ensure accuracy with regard to the facts supporting probable cause. Amid all of the exhaustive FBI surveillance into every aspect of Mr. Carter Page's life, he'd never been accused of any crime. So the bigger story here is that this FISA memo scandal is being spun to say that it's okay to take salacious gossip and opposition research to the FISA courts in order to strip an American citizen of their constitutional rights.
Just to add tension nobody really needs, as the opening ceremonies for the 2018 Winter Olympics are set to take place on Friday, U.S. Disarmament Ambassador Robert Wood told the forum at the Geneva talks that North Korea was only months away from attaining the capability to strike the United States with a nuclear-armed ballistic missile. Although Wood said he had no new information to share when asked about what he was basing his claims on. Wood also labeled North Korea's latest South Korean show of diplomacy as a charm offensive.
The situation on the Korean Peninsula has not changed. The regime continues work on its ballistic missile and nuclear programs. What I would call charm offensive, frankly, is fooling no one.
And now the DPRK is frantically warning that a preemptive bloody nose attack by the United States is imminent. Al Jazeera reported Young Chul said U.S. officials, including the defense secretary and the CIA director, repeatedly talked about a DPRK nuclear and missile threat to justify their argument for a military option and a new concept of a so-called bloody nose. Meanwhile, Guam sits under the most imminent threat of an attack by the DPRK.
The people of Guam are proud to host the continued bomber presence and one leg of the nuclear triad with the recent addition of the B-2 and B-52 bombers. Considering the bomber presence and as the westernmost territory of the United States, Guam holds vital strategic bases, and I'm happy to see the department place a THAAD system to aid in its defense. However, in your strategy, you call for investment on layered missile defense from North Korean threats. Considering our strategic importance, is Guam adequately defended?
All right, folks, we are back live. You never have this happen, but I had a little amplifier box from my mic go out. That's live TV and radio. We'll be back with Tommy Robinson.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
In the whole world, he is the guy on the streets in the face of the radical Islamicists that are taking over Europe, abducting women into sex slavery, children, ass for the tax exploding. And he's working with the Sikhs and with all the other great immigrant groups that are also being fed on by the radicalization of Islam that the British government and other governments have been caught working with it. And he just reminded me, because I'm under so much attack that I can't keep track of it anymore, that last year a man reportedly ran his car into some Muslims at a mosque, something we never called for violence. And the police immediately said, oh, he was a fan of Alex Jones and Paul Watson, and Mr. Robinson was talking to him. Well, they've now gotten the documents. It's not true. He's suing them over it. So Mr. Robinson is now on his feet, taking action for being a political prisoner, you name it. They took his house away, put him in prison. He's now suing over that at the high court. He's going to fill you in on this, but I can't even keep track of it anymore. I mean, there's like 8, 9 TV shows attacking me almost every day. Fiction shows where they say, this is Alex Jones. And they even mix InfoWars in. And people think this is real. I mean, this is how they're striking back, is with just full-on fake news. And there's a big article about the show Homeland where I am the main villain. The character says it's based on me, who does racist things, who kills people, who's a terrorist, who puts out fake news. Homeland, in the Trump era, tackles the deep state. You have to remember, they wrote the new homeland for Hillary to be president. So in the first season last year, since that happened, just to fill you in on the attack pieces, it was a woman president. But now a Trump has been elected. I guess she's been killed by me. And so a Trump has been elected, and the deep state's battling him and spying on him. But see, that was all written 6-8 months ago, and they didn't know that was going to come out. So they're saying they're not spying on Trump, but they have a TV show where in real life, what's going on is in the TV show. But Trump's a devil-worshipping white supremacist, so it's okay. So, Tommy, that's the level of attacks we're under, and getting into all those topics you were telling me about during the break.
Yeah, Alex, just to start, what they seem to be doing to you and to me is building us up so that it becomes acceptable for someone to kill you, which is exactly the same as happened to Theo van Gogh, who was a Dutch filmmaker who was murdered. And he was murdered because they built him up as a huge Nazi racist, which he wasn't. He was a liberal who spoke about Islam. But that's exactly what I see happening to yourself. I see it happening to me. Someone will think they're doing a country a service by killing us because of the media reports upon us. And the media agenda against us. But
hold on, it's funny you say that. Last week's Law and Order was called InfoWars, the episode, and it's based in Charlottesville. And they grabbed Millie Weaver, our reporter, and says the same thing she said. And then they gang rape her, and then the jury says it's okay, she deserves it. And the message is, go out and rape InfoWars reporters. I mean, that is the level of psychological warfare. Exactly what you just said.
Well, I didn't know about that. But that is unbelievable. But it's not unbelievable. It's not.
Oh, it's got blood pouring out between her legs. They rape her so bad, kind of like the people that Hillary represents that do that to little girls.
So that on that show, she's an InfoWars reporter.
Yes.
Oh my God. Wow. But I know because and that is what they're saying, and it's the same as happened to Theo van Gogh, who was a Dutch filmmaker, and he was left with a knife, murdered. But the man that killed him was a leftist, but he was killed because the man thought he was doing the world a better thing, and generally thought that because they'll build you up as such a monster, or they'll build me as such a monster that someone thinks they're morally just to do what they're doing.
And they say in the show, she's evil, she supports Trump, you're allowed to rape, go free. And everyone's like, yeah, rape women, yay, liberal. Kind of like Harvey Weinstein directed it.
Yeah, insane.
I know. I mean, things are like Twilight Zone now because you're like, oh, hey, they're blaming you and me for this attack. I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. It's all over the newspapers here for 6 months. It just gives me a headache. I mean, these people are crazy.
What they did for this attack, so in the opening of the terrorist court trial, they didn't warn me about this. In the opening of the trial, they said Tommy Robinson sent direct social media messages to Darren Osborne the days before the attack. Now, those headlines went everywhere. There is no truth in that. I have never messaged him myself. I did not follow him on Twitter. And they actually specifically said Twitter direct messages in the Independent newspaper, the Sun newspaper, Sky
and
News,
that's used. Then they call for your.
You see that Muslim who's threatening to kill me. All of these things have come from that media case. So they build it up, and then. But I know that they've got no legal argument because I never did. So that's why now on that case, I've set up a sort of crowdfund. People are donating via PayPal so that I can sue them and take them to court because this Cambridgeshire thing you've got on your screen now. This for me was the changing point. I was out with my children. This was a year ago. In fact, nearly a year ago to the day. I was out with my children having food in a family pub. The police come in, mob-handed, and said, leave this city now. And you can watch the video. I said, leave this city now. This is them following me. My children were hysterical. And I said, what sort of law is this? How can you do this? They said, leave the city now, we'll arrest you. I said, I'm out with my children. What are you doing? That's still now. My youngest daughter, that was at Luton versus Cambridge, which was a football match. This was afterwards. I'd just been to the fair. I'd bought candy floss. And my daughter, my youngest daughter now, she ran out in the road in that video. And I had to grab her. She was screaming hysterically. If you watch that video, you'll hear my children hysterical, crying, scared by the police. So on that point, I went home and I said, enough's enough now. What they've done is they've gone from harassing me, harassing my mum, harassing my wife, to now targeting my kids. The last 3 times they've done this on my children. So then I'm now suing. I'm in court next Wednesday for that case. They've offered me 2 financial out-of-court settlements, which I've refused. Because what they've done, when you watch the video, it's unbelievable. Your American audience need to see the full video of that to understand what level we're at.
We'll tweet it right now. We'll tweet it right now at Real Alex Jones. Because the footage is them saying, they're not saying you disturbed anybody, they're not saying anything, they're saying you're not allowed to be here.
Pitched me up pure and simple. I've spent £16,000 having a top legal representative go through the case, and he said that's illegal, that's illegal, that's illegal. So I'm going to court on that as well in 2 weeks, and then I'm going to have this other case. And I've had to set up, it's only now, years on, that I've managed to have support where I can do this. Because in the first 5 years of my activism, I was stitched up by legal defense teams, legal prosecuting teams, judges, and no one supported me. I had no financial backing to be able to afford real representation.
And let's be clear, you also lost your house, everything. They put you in the prison with the Muslims, in the Muslim section, to get you killed. Correct, Tommy? I mean, they also tried to kill you.
The audio's gone again, Alex.
Okay, I'm sorry. We'll.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I can hear.
Sure. Sometimes the Skype cuts out a little bit. We're not exaggerating any of this. And then there's also footage of you getting attacked when you were out in a park with your family. And because you fought back, the media said you were bad.
Yeah, of course. So I'm conscious of that every time, which is why the first thing you'll see, if you put in, there's one instant where I pulled up in my car. I was going in, I was working. So I was going into the builders merchants, and a Muslim pulled up in a car next to me, and he said, do you want to fight? So I said, let me just send this message. But the first thing I do is I get my phone out every time. If I walk through my hometown, my phone is on, ready to press record. Because as soon as someone comes up to me, that gentleman there, you can watch the video. I'm in the builder's merchants, and he starts punching hell at me. So I'm then fighting with him. And then I automatically press record because I have to defend myself, because I know the
listen, when I'm in downtown Austin or I'm in like Seattle, I'm recording all the time, because every minute or two, F you, Russian, I'm going to kill you. And then we just get the footage. And they're just mentally ill people that believe what the media is telling them.
Well, and otherwise, whoever it is I end up arguing with or fighting with will end up saying I was racist to them. And then I'll be done for a racial attack. So I need to prove every word that's said in my own defense. So I actually end up now having my hands down by my side, walking backwards all the time, because I know I'll be prosecuted, and I have to be so cautious of that, because I don't think I'll survive another prison sentence in the UK. I think that the people.
But Tommy, you've gotten so big now that I don't think they're going to put you in prison now like they did before for the year or whatever it was, because they don't want to make you into a martyr. That's why they're begging you to stop going on the street and having the courage, because you're showing the vicious hate, the vicious evil. And the police in the UK have fallen to the globalist to a great extent. They are all over the place working for the imams. And as has been documented, you were the first to expose it, the giant child kidnapping rings and the reports of them chopping the girls up after and selling them to people at kebab shops. See, that's the extra fun of it. That's a big Islamic thing, is to kill people, chop their bodies up, and then sell it to infidels. ISIS is big on that. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Waging war on corruption.
Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones.
It's Tommy Robinson from the UK. And they put him in prison for fighting back. They took his house. They took his business, everything in the last decade. And now he's very popular in the UK. And the lies about him being racist and all that, not true. The organization he founded kind of got taken over while he was in prison by some people. He then left it, exposed it. He's a really good guy, Tommy Robinson. But what he's not is somebody who's going to roll over and have his culture destroyed by outside barbarous groups. Led to the bane of civilization. TommyRobinson.com, that's T. Robinson New Era on Twitter. We got about 4 minutes left here We did tweet out your tweet, the video of you and your wife and your children being thrown out of the restaurant there at the pub by the police. So it's just an example for folks that want to see that in its entirety, what true authoritarianism means, where the left isn't going to let you be on the street, they're not going to let you be online, and they're going to demonize you, they're going to say things about you that aren't true, and then they're going to turn all their bots loose on you because you've been dehumanized. And they've turned a lot of the UK police into basically Antifa. So putting some bookends on this, you are fighting back. The Phoenix is rising. I mean, that's the good prognosis, but is there any hope for Europe or the UK in general?
I just spent the last 3 days in Germany. So if I talk about Germany, I spent the last 3 days in Germany. I was in a city called Cottbus, where in one German city, you had a 15-year-old girl murdered by an Afghani migrant. In this Cottbus, they've had an explosion of violence in the last 2 to 3 years. Their population now has 8.5% of refugees, something they've never witnessed before. So I went there because thousands of them were demonstrating. And this is the media. And I hope this video goes out tomorrow. But I hope it exposes the media, because as I'm interviewing a German woman who's telling me how scared she is, and she's telling me about the violence across the country, the mainstream media journalist behind me says, liar. I turn around to her and say, excuse me, what did you say? She goes, she's lying. I goes, well, explain how she's lying. She goes, no, I don't need to explain. Do your own research. I said, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You have to explain now why she's lying. And she started pushing the camera. I said, you're a journalist. What are you doing? And at that point, I think I said to her, you are a fascist. And then she said, oh, I'm going to get the police. But this will all be on our video. Then I go up to more journalists. And I have 3 or 4 conversations with journalists, which completely exposes their agenda to slander and demonize these decent German people who are scared. And then the next day, I went to an AfD leadership meeting to see about how big the AfD is getting in Germany. And on Monday, I joined 10,000 people as they marched through the city of Dresden. So I'd say that this summer, if the fight back and resistance, which has already started, I'd say Germany's where to keep your eye on. Britain is going to face a lot more. The British public are more awake than they've ever been. The reception I get now across the whole country is positive. The label that they've attacked me and beat me down with of racist is gone. No one ever says that anymore. They just say I'm against Islam or anti-Islam. So, yeah, I'd say that people are waking up, and I'm so glad that through the media or alternative media, we have an opportunity to speak to people direct. People no longer trust the media at all. I also done 2 live streams this week. You can watch them where the journalist didn't know I was live streaming them. So I live streamed a sit down with Sky News and the BBC. And when you watch the interviews with them, it is so embarrassing on their behalf, because it completely exposed their agenda and their narrative and what they were trying to do.
So you did what I did with Megyn Kelly is I haven't seen those, but is it where they'll take a question about one thing and add it with another answer to make you sound crazy?
Yeah, they dropped words. He was dropping words about what I'd said. He was taking things completely out of context, but I was correcting him on them. And I knew that when it goes on Sky News, they'll show 20 seconds. But I've got 20 minutes now. So I just put my video out and said, here's the interview. And when he realises at the end, he says, none of this can go out. And I said, you might as well smile because you're live.
I know, I love doing it. Hey, brother, you got to start coming on every week. Talk to Nico, talk to the crew. We got to start talking more. We got to work together, because I don't even want to work with Watson. And I think you 2 guys teaming up would be the super dynamic duo. Tommy Robinson, you're awesome. We love you, and we really appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
Well, we're getting more North Korean every day in this country. I mean, yesterday the president says people who don't cheer are un-American and treasonous. And today we're going to start having big parades with tanks and missiles. People have to decide whether they want to have that kind of country. I mean, we have a country where we celebrate our troops, as Barbara said, when they come home from battle in Lower Manhattan, and we throw ticker tape. But the idea in peacetime, simply to have tanks roll through the streets of Washington, that's, to use a phrase that the president likes to use, in my experience, that's un-American.
And one of the reasons we don't tend to have those military parades in America is just the sense that, being the power that we are, we don't need to show off our military might like countries like North Korea or Russia might need to.
talking about the cost of this parade and there would be tanks, right? And would there be nuclear weapons like some countries? I mean, would it simply be whatever President Trump wants it to be?
No, I find it a bit difficult to even talk about the details of what this parade would look like because
It felt silly, like asking you, like, is this really?
It's a total waste of time.
Yeah, if this really would happen, like we're discussing it as if, and maybe it would. I mean, do you think it would?
It wouldn't look like a parade that we see in Pyongyang, certainly. It wouldn't look like a parade that we used to see when the Soviet Union would roll their massive military across Red Square. It would look like a bunch of great Americans who were probably feeling a bit embarrassed that they were required to do this.
Donald Trump is a showman. He likes the kind of bling and blang casino kind of bells ringing. Thinks this parade will be a great idea. It's the part that bothers me, Don, is Donald Trump is yet to visit our 15,000 troops in Afghanistan. We have 6,000 troops in Syria and Iraq. He's never gone to even see them. Barack Obama was president 3 months and he went to Iraq. George W. Bush went 4 times to Iraq and twice to Afghanistan. The big gap here is a president that doesn't want to go meet our troops. He goes to Mar-a-Lago instead.
All right, let's talk facts before you give you some of the latest intel analysis on what's currently happening with our source, Zach, who his bona fides are excellent. His identity is known to me and his information is known to myself, but also some other sources that say he's an excellent analyst to be joining us. We're going to go to him here in a few minutes. But there are certain issues that are Rosetta Stones, or skeleton keys, as I call them, that open up what we're facing. The leftist globalists hate America. They've always hated our military. They're quoted as calling the military dumb animals. They're really scared of people that sacrifice or have courage because they're a bunch of cloistered, chicken-necked academics who are threatened by it. They're scared of them. Leftists are just horrified of any individual that they have an idea has any physical or mental prowess that isn't fully in the state's hands. And they don't want to raise the morale of the military, just like MSNBC said after the State of the Union. They said, you can't talk about family, church, and our military. That's a nostalgia bygone era. That was said on MSNBC, CNN. I played the clips. I showed the tweets last week, probably 25 times or more. And it's one thing to read a textbook from 15 years ago that they have at the University of Texas that I showed on air. It says the family's to be phased out. It belongs to prehistoric era. It's barbarous. Those were the terms used. And then you see them say it now on TV. So we haven't had a military parade for the veterans and all their sacrifice and their families and those that have died in 19 years, 18 and a half years. Everybody else has them. Now, obviously, you've got authoritarian regimes. They do them too and do them every week because that's all they are. But that's like saying because authoritarian regimes have bad police, we can't have any police. And that police are inherently bad because police are bad in North Korea. See how that works? Because they want to demoralize us, and they don't want Trump to be seen in the center of that as the commander-in-chief, and they want to continue to demoralize people. That's their goal until they take down America. Then you're going to have parades every week, and then it's going to be dangerous and bad, and it's going to be SJWs leading it, and they're going to be all over the streets, not letting you go out in public, shutting you down online, and putting you in prison, just like they're doing to folks that exposed the Islamic invasion in the UK. Last hour, we showed footage of people at a restaurant with little kids and his wife, and the police come in, not the restaurant. Restaurant doesn't tell them to go. The police say, you're not allowed in this town. Get out, and make him go to his car in Cambridge and leave. He's suing them. And it isn't like he's a convicted drug dealer in the old days. The sheriff says, get out of town here, boy, because he's elected or whatever. And the town elects him and gives him the authorization to do that. That's still probably unconstitutional. But this is just a nice family because they're globalist. I'm going to go to our guest here in just a moment. It's just that I don't get demoralized. In fact, when they were on top of us, I always had energy and was angry and ready to fight because I knew they were on top of us. Now that we're starting to have some victories, they're coming out of the closet about how bad they are. And it's a weird psychology where they're so evil and so sick and got so many bad people willing to work for them in the media and the rest of it that it's demoralized me Not to a great extent, but it's put a chink in somebody that really have never been able to demoralize. When it came home, it's not just some tiny elite at the top. Man, we got a lot of really bad people running things at every level who are dug in and really vicious and really hateful and who are just downright evil, man. They'd rather go out of their way to be allied with this globalist sickness than be winners and be more successfully for their own family and themselves. And that's what gets to me, is that these people will do active evil, and defend evil wherever it is worldwide. Our media has been defending North Korea, saying it's great and Trump's bad, and except to call him North Korea. So, Zach, tell us what you got coming up. I appreciate you joining us to give us updates on your sources, but also just your analysis as a great intel source. And we're not debating or fighting with QAnon. I'm just saying QAnon's not known, and you think there's some good group of good guys, and so do I. I'm just saying your bona fides are vetted and known by me. So you're giving people some really interesting, powerful info, and what you've told us in the past has turned out to be very, very accurate. So what's the latest on the radar screen? Thank God, you said they rolled up some of those planned terror attacks that we know are always ongoing in little Somalia there in Minneapolis, St. Paul. But so it's good that didn't happen. But more Amtrak derailments, more Amtrak problems, and a lot of other stuff. So what's on your radar?
Yes. Hello, Alex. It's great to be back on with you and have the opportunity to connect some dots and get into some very important breaking issues and events. I joined you from just outside Cape Canaveral, where yesterday, SpaceX, in conjunction with our government, made history. But the big points in breaking intel will center around uncovering and rolling up deep state Islamic sleeper cells and the removing of left behind deep state assets and key military and judicial positions among the waterfront. But those two big stories, and just a lot going on right now.
That is all extremely important. What do you make just of the general battle space right now with the globalists? Are they demoralized yet? Because they're fighting harder than ever, even though what they're doing is exposing them.
Well, we have a very clear choice on this planet. And here it is. Our country is either going to align with China and Pakistan, or we're going to have an alignment with Russia and India. And we know who wants what in this country. And that decision will shape the next 50 to 100 years. And this choice is critical. With Russia, you have them just today, deporting all their North Korean migrant workers to sort of, go along with the UN sanctions and everything like this. And, they've done nothing but good things for us. They've fought ISIS. They should be our sister country. They're more aligned with us. India, the moral comparison to Pakistan is night and day. You have their premier falling into the arms of Trump, and they're just, really on board with
this is so important. Stay there. Let's get a U.S. Special Operations Command perspective on the real global alliance and what some of the top generals behind Flynn were wanting Trump to do that freaked the globalists out so much. An alliance between Russia, the United States, bringing down the euro, bringing freedom back to Europe, allied with India and Japan and others.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
I don't talk to Zach off air before he comes on with us. We just set him up as a guest. And he started calling in, I guess, a year and a half ago, and just had amazing analysis that I knew I was getting similar information from people that are currently high-level CIA, formerly CIA, Defense Intelligence, Army Special Operations Command, Delta Force. Just how that Delta Force works is you're in the combat group and you never get out of it. And then there's like administrative people, and they embed them all over the infrastructure. That's not a secret to foreign governments. I'm not giving secrets out here, but that's the type of analysis I get from those people. And of course, they get my analysis as well, and I do my own research. But we looked at Russia in the last few years, the last decade, and said they're anti-communist, they're becoming free market, their taxes are lower than us, they're pro-Christian, it's real, and they don't even want the surrounding countries around them. They just don't want to be destabilized by George Soros. And, they're banning teaching kids, how to be transgender in Russia. That's why the globalists don't like them. They've come out of the leftist globalist experiment. But let me just go back to Zach. And so why not ally with Russia just for the resources alone? Because they've got 2 to 3 times what Africa does, like 5, 6, 7 times what we've got, depending on how you look at it. And all the rest of it, the whole crossroads of the world with the U.S. and Russia, and then linked up with Japan, South Korea, India, and then boom, the rest of the world. That's a real alliance for peace. China's done with their expansion if that happens. If you want an American century, but a century for India and Russia and the whole world, it's a match made in heaven, and the Russians are begging for it. They're begging for it because it's a good move, okay? They've already enjoyed 85 years of being a proxy state to try to take over the world and having the globalists come in from foreign countries and run them and, you know, all the hunchback globalists, you know, feeding on them. And so it's a magic moment. And Zach, we'll have you in the next segment because I'm ranting here. Finish up that point, but then you want to get into this breaking news. Saudi man in Oklahoma charged with lying about al-Qaeda training. And then a Saudi who helped al-Qaeda camp is arrested in Oklahoma. You say that's critical. Which one you want to hit now? The two geopolitical choices that we have? One, be run by the globalist and the Vatican, controlled by the globalist, and the communist Chinese and the socialist EU, allied with Hollywood and all the and Pakistan, or go with the new common sense alliance that has matriculated up from the boardrooms of the Pentagon, not from the think tanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to recap, you know, I mean, in this country, as a globe, we have a clear choice here. It is an alignment with China and Pakistan because they're tethered at the hip for several deep state issues, or an alignment with Russia and India. Obviously, you know, the CIA, FBI Operation Mockingbird narrative given to their media assets, which is death, destruction, deception, are pro-China, pro-Pakistan for whatever reason on the left. If you look into the Muslim Brotherhood, Awan Brothers connection, I don't like that. They have an out for Russia. Russia could do no good. India just kind of gets swept under the rug. They're fairly neutral, but they are a staunch ally with Russia. So you get one or the other. You don't get India if you go with Pakistan. That's just not going to happen. So it's a clear choice: China or Pakistan or Russia and India. And the lines are drawn, and it's obvious. We're seeing, and we spoke about this several months ago, the North Korea narrative changing quickly and precisely, humanizing the North Korean population by hosting the defectors at the White House. You know, the tide's turning there, and the raging fires of strategic patience are being put out and contained. So there's a real-world war threat there that we're containing, and it's obvious that we're not going along the lines. We're not going to follow the North Korea, you know, strategic patience, generational facade that's been going on. So I think Trump and the White House currently is hoping to align with Russia and India, but obviously the media and the left and the majority of the country, unfortunately, is criticizing him for this. And I don't know if publicly he's feeling the pressure and starting to do certain things. I'm not sure. He's a very strategic individual. He knows what he's doing and he's savvy. But we have to align with Russia and India, not China and Pakistan. We've been aligning with China and Pakistan generationally for quite some time, and look at the mess it's created. So that's at an
They've 100% cheated on every deal, backstabbed us, and you see Trump now is starting to take Pakistan to the woodshed.
Absolutely. And information is going to come out, and it's going to, you know, the FISA memo was just the beginning. But like I said, Pakistan.
Well, we said this 6 months ago. The way to beat ISIS and the Taliban is don't let them run across the mountains of Pakistan like they've been doing.
Absolutely, and the ISI and the Awan Brothers, Muslim Brotherhood, have a lot to do with this, and this information is going to start to come out, obviously, in the next couple months, and it's going to be pretty interesting. And you know, we can't align with this. They've double-crossed us. They've been doing terrible things in this country. And, you know, Trump signaling to, you know, he's signed the executive order to keep Guantanamo Bay open. This is critical. I just hope that, you know, we could keep the momentum, in full effect and not sort of fall into a popularity contest, because I've seen some troubling things come out of the White House in response to Russia or some military actions. You know, I got a feeling that Trump and Putin get along quite well, and hopefully that is the case. And the Indian premier and Trump do get along very well. But you know, we're in economic warfare. We're in actual warfare. So you know, we're in dire times here. But the alignment in the groups that we need to align ourselves with is clear to me and all the patriots. But if you would watch any leftist or mainstream media, you would think Russia is the enemy. Russia is the worst thing on the planet. That it is the Chinese.
And from my research, Russia has put up with a whole bunch of attacks, insults, sanctions, being drugged through the mud. Even under Obama and now under Trump has absolutely kicked Russia right in the face while telling Putin, I'm your buddy, I'm your friend. And I think the Russians are sophisticated enough to understand that Trump tried this realignment, said he wanted it. The globalists came in and freaked out about it because they're the ones that are actually destroying our country. They want to cut us off resource-wise and only give it to China. I mean, it's totally clear. So Trump's turning America back on. He's reactivating our sovereignty. But as a olive branch of the neocons that got into the White House via Bannon and others, he is just really escalating things to help George Soros try to destabilize Russia. And I just think anything George Soros is up to, we should oppose.
Absolutely. And when it comes to, economic ideas or ideals, it's, you have a communist sort of, communist ran economy there in China where it's top down, or you have Russia, which is trying to get its free market going and trying to, really spread and, breed a new country there and breed a new economy. And when it comes to the moral comparisons between Pakistan and India, that's quite clear. You get radical Islamicists in Pakistan, or you get the moral Hindu or Buddhist base in India. So to me, the idea is very clear. Obviously, we think rationally. And
why do Indians love Trump so much in India and in the U.S. even before Trump won? And I was looking up the Indian leader. He doesn't normally start hugging people over and over again. He wouldn't turn loose at Trump.
Well, they're also in a fight with their life, and they border Pakistan, so they've been involved in internal conflicts there forever. And if you know the type of individuals coming out of Pakistan, the most radical brand of Islam, the craziest factions of Islam, with deep state backing, a lot of Al Qaeda, ISIS, Mujahideen, perpetuation came out of Pakistan. So a lot of this was really centered in Pakistan. It's such a clash of cultures that we can't even decipher and realize what's going on there. But the intelligence agencies know the problem that Pakistan is, and obviously their neighboring country of India understands that problem.
That's right. 100 nuclear weapons at least, and they claim that AQ Khan gave them the nukes, but I always wonder who really gave Pakistan the nukes. The word is China, and then now we hear Pakistan may have given them to Saudi Arabia. We'll discuss that all on the other side, and then I'll get into the whole transgender plot.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
The main enemy of these people, but it's got to be done. And if you understand why they hate us, you'll understand the key to the game. We got their number. They think you're so stupid. They've all written white papers and books about everything. The CFR, every time their bi-monthly book comes out, it's how they're going to shut America down, and the Chinese century, and every stinking one of them is basically on the Chinese payroll. And the media spins it, oh, you don't like Chinese people? Give me a break. There's 1,400,000,000 of those folks, and 90% are at slave wage level. They put people categorized, blood type, genome typed, down to genome type, harvest their organs on the tarmac. That's how they advertise they're the freshest. They have execution vans in every city, 12 vans in their bigger cities. That's how busy they are. And they fly into Japan and implant the organs an hour and a half later. And they advertise the freshest. And the leftist media goes, Jones is attacking the Chinese again. He doesn't like Asians. I'm not even going to play race cards here. See, well, I will play the race card. My family has worked and donated money so that Asian children aren't aborted, and we have adopted from Asia. So see, that's the difference. It's not some white knight thing here. It's that we try to do what we say we're for, and it's only added pleasure and goodness to our lives, my dear sweet sister. But it just shows how they twist everything so evilly. We're going back to Zach here. They just pointed out that I never plug anymore, and I talk to the accountants when I plug. There's enough money to pay for things if I always plug. When I don't, things happen where there's not even funds for me to be able to battle globalist assaults and things. So I need you to flood me with stupid, dirty cash, because I can take that crap and I can turn it around towards information warfare with the truth against the globalists, and I can stand against their fights. When you buy the products, we're strong like a lighthouse out on a promontory, out on a peninsula in a raging typhoon. When you don't pray for us, when you don't spread the links, when you're not excited, and when you're not buying products, we are nothing. That's why don't thank me when you call in or on the street. We're in this together. God Almighty, I'm embarrassed to half my behavior and you know, up here. And I'm exhausted, and I do too much, and I'm kind of like a guy in the 12th round, like stumbling up against somebody. I know, it isn't about me, okay? If I wanted that, I could be anything I wanted in Hollywood. And I'm not bragging. That's how they get you to sell out. So you get the liver cancer or whatever, or until your liver shuts down or whatever. We need to be here for our families. I get the thing about when you're duty-bound and focused on just working your ass off and everything else, that it's like you're not suicidal. You don't want to die, but you're not really worried about it. You know what I mean? You're going to join your ancestors anyways. No more pain. But we had to take care of ourselves. It's like my dad's dad. I'm going to go to our guest. I'm sorry, I'm a bad. He's got so much to cover, but I got to plug. My dad would watch his dad sit there and take Cooper Tox, that was basically cyanide-based powder. You're supposed to wear a mask and gloves and put it a little bit on the backs of cows. All he knew was it killed the screw worms and flies real quick. And I remember him saying, when my dad read it when he was like 6 years old, he read the Cooper Tox. He said, Daddy, this says it's cyanide. You got to wear a mask and gloves. He's like, I'm not a wimp. I'll do whatever I want. Well, when he got bone cancer, it wasn't fun. So that's what I'm talking about here. We can't just be these tough guys. Tough guys take care of themselves. It's time we all start doing that. And I'm giving myself a speech here, too, because I know how great all this stuff is. And at the time, I don't take it. It's just like this macho crap. I'm not even trying to be that way. I just can't help it. And I don't want to be that way anymore because I need to be here for my family, and I know that. I'm saying all of you need to take care of yourselves. All of us do. All right, going back to Zach. Zach, you got big breaking news on what you talked about last week about Guantanamo Bay and leaving Islamicists behind inside the U.S. Now it's breaking. Saudi, who attended Al-Qaeda training camp, was arrested in Oklahoma. You said this is all part of the commanders being fired from Guantanamo Bay. Zach, what's the intel?
Absolutely. This all ties in together. This is the turning of the tides. This is just after a week of Trump signing the executive order to keep Guantanamo Bay open. Yesterday, we had two unprecedented events. The first one we'll get into is the proof of concept. We could stop one of these. If we could find one of these, we could roll them all up, and we could do the same thing to them all. So the first issue is the deep state Islamic sleeper cell asset finally arrested. This individual's name is Mr. Al-Falaj. That's spelled A-L-F-A-L-L-A-J. And Mr. Al-Falaj, in 2000, was a part of the Al-Farouk training camp in Afghanistan, the most hardcore training camp they have there before the towers were hit, where they obviously have the video evidence and them going through the monkey bars and the whole nine and all this. But these were the initial group of Al-Qaeda, you know, the initial base and command there before the attacks in 2001. And, of course, you know, after the attacks, they fled that area, but our special operators and intelligence agencies flooded the area in Afghanistan and picked up key intel. Al-Falaj was identified in a major raid. They got his ID, physical phone numbers, physical addresses, DNA evidence. They knew exactly who he was, name, address, all of it, from sort of deep state factions in Saudi Arabia, these guys who eventually went to Afghanistan with left behind Mujahideen individuals who became what we know as Al-Qaeda. And let's just get into the story. So that happens. They got him booked, and they have his full profile at the FBI counterterrorism office. He has a full file and everything. A lot of time passes in between that, obviously. And in 2011, he comes to the U.S. on a non-immigrant visa. His so-called wife is going to Southwestern Oklahoma State University, about an hour outside of Oklahoma City. So he comes in on a non-immigrant visa. First of all, that should have been a big red flag. This guy just literally files a non-immigrant visa and gets in. So they have him in the FBI counterterrorism. They have his file. They know who he is. He's actually a high-value target. He's in the States, no problem. That's a big deal. Okay, then a lot of...
we got to go to break. Come back and I'll give you the floor for this final segment. Then I'll go ahead and host part of the fourth hour. Tommy Robinson's agreed to co-host with me, but I'll get into the whole transgender conspiracy at the start of the fourth hour. But Zach's breaking down a high-value Al-Qaeda target, pretty high level, brought in and protected by Obama, now being rolled up by Trump. And, of course, there's a lot of other folks you don't hear about who are getting dirt naps.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Talking to Zach, our really amazing intel source. I have other sources that are in similar walks of life and other areas, and they pretty much mirror our own research. In fact, a lot of our research is their research and back and forth. I mean, truth, objectively looked at by 2 different people or 1,000 different people, pretty much comes up with the same truth of your common sense. It's very pragmatic as well, and I don't lionize our military because militaries can certainly end up being used the wrong way in authoritarian ways, but I was pleasantly surprised in the last 5-6 years to learn that it's been our military that said no to Obama openly bringing down Syria and backing al-Qaeda and ISIS, the whole deep state thing to bring in radical Islam and let it carnage the rest of Islam, because the biggest enemy of Muslims is the globalist funded radical Islamicists out of Pakistan and other areas. As Zach, who, believe me, can speak directly to that, he's a leading expert on it, and folks knew who he was. So you're looking at all this, and you see the bigger globalist plan. It's just chaos for everybody. Screw over the Muslims, screw over the West, screw over the Christians, screw over the Buddhists, screw over the Japanese, screw over the Indians, screw over the Chinese people. And Cy Hirsch has written about this. You know, Cy Hirsch said he wanted to come on last year and give us credit for our reporting and everything. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner. And he's what I'd call a real classical liberal in that he understood what had really gone on and happened in military to military, how our own military checkmated Obama and the plan to really cause a clash of civilizations. So it's a very sophisticated issue, but I wanted Zach to finish up with just this story about, rolling up this al-Qaeda leader here in the United States who was, patient zero there at the original al-Qaeda protected areas, and how criminal elements of our government, not even the whole CIA, let's be clear, but under Obama and Clinton, certainly, and even Bush already said the exact same people. So it was the whole CIA, at least the leadership level before. Now Trump is ending that whole policy, and then you were going to get into the rest of it, how this arrest ties into what happened at Guantanamo Bay and those firings.
Absolutely. So now we have established that the FBI counterterrorism had a profile on this guy. Our intelligence agencies knew exactly who he was. He entered our country in 2011 on a non-immigrant visa with his official name, with his actual name. This is ridiculous. And he goes into just an hour outside of Oklahoma City. This is where it gets good. So he outstays his non-immigrant visa. He's expired in his non-immigrant visa, still no red flags, still no arrest, still nothing. Then in 2016, he starts to take private flying lessons, if you could believe that. This is validated. This is on record. So this individual in 2016, who should have been rolled up 3 times, he should have never even been here since 2011, starts taking flying lessons in 2016. Still no arrest. He's not being rolled up. He's in communities, no job, no income. We know who he is, nothing. Okay. Then just yesterday, he's arrested. And is it the FBI kicking in doors and he's out of there? No. He was arrested on an immigration charge. So it was patriots and security firms that forced the FBI to do their job. They said, look, this guy's got a non-immigrant visa. If he gets rolled up on that, you'll see his name in the database and you're forced to follow.
Sure. Now that it's embarrassing, they're just getting rid of it because patriots forced it. And then let me guess, does he tie into networks and other events that were?
Absolutely. He is one of so many. And at that Southwestern Oklahoma State University, there's many studies there. Of course, we can't demonize.
Well, that's where a bunch of them trained before. A bunch of them trained there before 9/11.
Absolutely. And I mean, this university, Southwestern Oklahoma State, is just there. But make no mistakes, folks, this guy was taking flight lessons. The type of background checks and vetting that needs to happen just to fill out the applications to start the flying process are incredible. But forget that. This guy's been in the country since 2011, overstaying visas. We know who he is. He's a high-value target. And this guy was going to kamikaze a plane into a federal building in Oklahoma City filled with goodies. You bet. Okay.
Which is funny, because they had their deep state operatives, Michael Hastings' wife that sold him down the river, and her statements. She pops up at key times as statements and said, there's going to be a new Oklahoma City, a mass murder, a massacre a week and a half ago if you release this memo. And then you have that being, I said, look, that's a talking point, because she's a key person that they use as a gopher to run flags up. I'm not even saying she's involved. They just use her as an errand girl. And then Adam Schiff pops out and says the exact same thing last week. So are you saying, I know you can't get into classified stuff, that something big was foiled?
Absolutely. That's why they had to afford it. It was security firms and patriots who forced the FBI's hand, but it wasn't under their own volition. This was based off of an initial immigration issue. The same thing as an illegal Mexican, working and not doing E-Verify and being raided.
Sure, there's a file. The guy's Al Qaeda from the beginning. He's year one alumni, Al Qaeda, and he's here. Obviously, got a network. That area, as you point, just in public intelligence. That's a key center for him. Probably their key center for whatever reason, right under folks' nose. And then this happens, and so right there, wow! I wish I knew the whole story behind that.
So let me get this straight. They could dragnet under Carter Page and FISA, but they can't catch these guys? Really? If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you, because he's one of many, and it's all being rolled up. And this happened simultaneously, the arrest of this guy, which was a signal to the rest of them, because they're done, and we know exactly who they are. That's exactly why this guy, Mr. Al-Falaj, was rolled up, because he's in communities. He has no income. He's taking flying lessons, and we know what's going on there. Okay, this happened simultaneously, where Secretary of Defense, with the support of President Donald Trump, fired and removed two key high-level individuals at Guantanamo Bay. One of which was Harvey Rishakoff, who was the convening authority for the military commissions, and the second was Gary Brown, who was the legal advisor for military commissions. Both these guys are at the helm of the trials for 9/11 terrorists, and we all know what happened on that morning of 9/11. We all know the false flag pretenses. We all know how it was a plan to cripple our country, cripple our economy.
But let's be clear, because they always misrepresent. They always misrepresent, and I'm the guy that from the day one's been exposing it. They say we're saying America did it, or our military did it, or the firemen did it. No, criminal elements working with radical jihadists in a whole operation that's so deep we don't have all the answers. We just know the official story is a lie. We're using that to use an excuse to go in the Middle East, not to stop radical Islam, but to sow radical Islam, destabilize things, then collapse Europe, and then have a clash of civilizations that takes out Islam and Christianity at the same time. Is that what you're getting at?
Absolutely. That was the cornerstone event, the cornerstone event to the generational push in pretext to align with China and Pakistan, to enter a one world government, to completely dissolve what we have going on here. And unfortunately, the Donald Trump, or I should say fortunately and unfortunately for them, the deep state actors, but fortunately for us, Donald Trump and his being elected into the presidency has stopped that. And this is very critical. This is exactly what's going on. You don't understand. The two individuals that were removed at Guantanamo Bay, this is unprecedented. Mattis, stomped right down there and removed them. And what was the official point? They didn't cover this up. This is not a retirement. They said it was a loss of confidence, unquote. They know what happened at 9/11. Trump talked to Jeb Bush directly on the stage for the world to see what happened on 9/11.
Oh, I was told behind the scenes he was going to... They threatened Cruz over his dad, which is known. They got a CIA file. It's him. He went away. They're like, oh, what? They're like, oh, yeah, Trump's got all the files. Exactly. And he let them all know. I'm going to bring 9/11 out. Trump's on tape 2 weeks after 9/11 saying bombs blew up Building 7. So Trump knows it all. That's what I've been told by high-level people that have been in a 2-hour conversation with Trump, even late last year, is they go, Alex, you don't get it. He knows it all. Like Corsi said, before you were even born. Then behind the scenes, I would have these long conversations. Trump is obsessed with all this and knows the whole thing. That's why they're crapping their britches right now.
Absolutely, and this is a stranglehold and conspiracy just crippling our country, and it's on its way out. This has massive implications also once cleansed and decapitated on the economy. Once this is absolutely decapitated from our economy, our defense spending will reflect that. Of course, Trump wants a strong military, and this is Ron Paul territory, where he says, hey, a strong military doesn't mean a strong defense doesn't mean a strong preemptive empire-building system. So we could both shrink our defense budget and also have the most capable military ever when we're not including ourselves in this full spectrum.
Well, say it. The globalists give us policies to sap us and sabotage us and not be strategic.
Exactly. So you have individuals like Peter Schiff on yesterday, who I respect and admire, and all these projections and everything is based on a perpetual defense budget. These defense budgets are based on empire building, are based on full spectrum dominance, built-in, planned, and scripted false flags that once actually contained, once we're not engaging in it, once we're not orchestrating.
And what you're letting out is the big secret. We got to go to break. We'll come back in 1 minute. The big secret is that Trump's truly pragmatic and doesn't want false flags, doesn't want Machiavelli. He wants straight shooting. And the insane people inside the globalist system think that's mentally ill. No, that's called honor. That's how called getting things done. It's called America. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Where it's going, because if you understand this, you understand the key to the whole operation. And the reason I'm going to do this now is I've already said all this before, but they now admit it. That's the crazy phase we're in now. Like, they lost because they would cover it up, and then we would expose their own writings, so it would discredit them. So now they just admit the plan. And it's amazing. So does it mean Donald Trump's an angel, or I'm perfect, or Zach's perfect, or you're perfect? No. But we believe in prosperity. We believe in really a college of humanity working together. We want to go upwardly mobile. And I like other cultures. I mean, if it's really about different clothes, different food, different people, and everything else, yeah, that's great. If they're compatible. People from India are very compatible with Western culture. People from Latin America are, unless they get brainwashed to be communist. But radical Islam, funded by the globalists, is not. So, Zach, a great intel source, in the last 4.5 minutes or 3.5 minutes we have left, other key information you want to relay to people, other key points about Trump cleaning house of these pro-Al-Qaeda folks. Because that's what I was told about Guantanamo Bay. Like, some low-level person, they'll just do CIA mind control torture on them, just to test stuff at that little CIA base they got up on the hill there. And then everybody else is made like a training facility to see who will work with them to go be a triple agent, not to stop radical Islam, but to actually carry out terror attacks.
Absolutely, and I also got some SpaceX Elon Musk info because I was at Cape Canaveral while all this was breaking yesterday, watching the launch. The juxtaposition there is incredible, so I have to get to that. But just to wrap up, look, this is week one. Trump just signed the executive order at Guantanamo Bay. These full spectrum dominance, deep state backed crap that's been going on around the globe is going to be over. It's going to be over very soon if Trump is successful, and this is critical when it comes to our economy as well, because the amount of money allocated to this nation-building and imperialistic sort of actions around the world is very expensive. You think it's cheap to have 50,000 people in Japan, Korea, Germany, and almost every other sophisticated country around the world. We're everywhere. We could have the most sophisticated defense. We could protect our country, protect our own land, align with key allies, and work together and shrink that budget, get our military armed and capable as they should be, put that money back into the economy to attack the deficit. This is major implications.
But we are deliberately meant to be the ugly American, do all the things, expand, spend the money, that have the globalists come in and take over the countries once we're done being the jackals, and then we get the blame. They roll it up. China's the angel that did it all financially the way we should have been doing it. And so our own thinkers are going, why are we selling ourselves out, paying for it all, getting screwed over, and then the communist Chinese take over after they played good cop? Our own war planners have deciphered the globalist program that myself and many others have exposed, have realized it's real, and have decided to double-cross the entire globalist program from just a pragmatic view. This is what we should all be doing.
Absolutely, and all these experts, all these trends researchers, everything, they're basing this and they're predicating this off of historical trends. This is unlike anything. This is the second American Revolution. So I encourage Peter Schiff to work into his algorithm. What happens if the defense budget actually shrinks by 35 to 40%, and we get out of all these issues? This is going to take years.
And that's the plan. Stay there. We got to do more, and I'll get into the whole plan to attack the family too. But I want you to finish up with Elon Musk being involved in all that. And they're at Cape Canaveral watching that amazing launch. We'll show some footage of for TV viewers on the other side. But the reason I like Zach is the thinking you're getting from Zach is the thinking I've gotten from the president and from retired generals and other people. This is what they want to do. This is like really trying to build a future. And it's very clear what that future is. And the public wants it. Wow, imagine that. Common sense is popular. Realized, and the big mega banks that were funding them, that collectivism just doesn't work for their eugenics takeover, because it was only a means to an end. So they decided to try to have a bifurcated system where you have communist slave zones with propped up elites who become viceroys who then exploit the populations and then economically bring down the target nations. Because once communists take over a country, they always then exploit it to take over the next. It's a robber baron tool of control. That's all been declassified. That's why all the big universities, all the big money funds communism and then tells you it doesn't exist out of the other side of their mouth. But talking to Zach about this whole thing, our own elites, I know, in the last few decades have had their own rebellion and said, you know, I am an elitist. I believe in humanity, and I believe I'm so powerful. Not that I'm on a power trip, but I'm speaking for them. These are the conversations that why should we screw everybody over? This instinct to dumb people down and poison them and control them, that's going to blow back on everybody. Let's just export everybody to space and decide to go for the stars and let's go with our real inclination, not with some weird, selfish, social Darwinist thing that we're dominant, let's dumb everybody down and kill everybody, and you know, it'll all be better that way. So that's the big fight between globalism and Americanism. Not that America's perfect, but it's seen as the ideal fulcrum to launch this, and it's built the whole global government off our own blood, sweat, and ingenuity, and millions of dead men and thousands of dead women. And so you could argue at a very sophisticated level that this was the original plan to roll out globalism, capture all the communist systems, get them all under surveillance and control, and then once you had the whole DARPA grid in, they thought would be for surveillance, use that to bring them down. But that's not really what happened. It's the delusions of evil always get turned around in the end and used against them. Like the Bible says, the pit you've dug for your brother is the pit you're going to fall into. Zach, you agree with that? And the other point about watching the big launch yesterday, propelling that automobile, the idea of the sexy machine into space, a great advertisement for space travel, exactly what we need.
Absolutely. So again, here we have another choice. We have the choice of China, Pakistan, and Russia, India. Now we have this choice. Do you want an AI future and an AI alignment, or do you want a pro-human ethical alignment? And those lines have been drawn.
You just said it. You just said it. I thought that this morning. You're right. That's why Zach's so smart. We just put a freaking beautiful car and a human, the image of us on the space highway, baby, as a ritual archetype saying we're going to the stars. Space is about humans again, not these damn robots. You are amazing. That's the real archetype of this.
And this is what's going on behind the scenes that will be revealed historically. And this is exactly what's going on. You have the left in the Silicon Valley.
Trump told me, and I shouldn't say this part of one of the comments, he said, Alex, you're right. We're building a future that has humans in it, for humans. And I'd already said that myself. Musk is saying it, but Trump gets that. He's like, what? Get rid of a future where my great-great-grandkids aren't kicking ass? BS, man. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. You have the left and the deep state sort of infiltrated Silicon Valley tech individuals aligning with AI, with a humanless future on this planet, whereas Trump, the Patriots, and Elon Musk and SpaceX and this faction of our humanity is talking about a future that's making life multiplanetary with humans at the core of it. Okay? That's what's going on here. You have Trump reinstating the National Space Council on June 30th of last year. Almost immediately, one of the first things he did when he was in office, which was critical. You have him meeting with SpaceX, with Elon, and having this conversation and really having this melding of the minds and making it happen. Yesterday, we have the Falcon Heavy historic launch. This was an incredible moment in history. This is the most powerful rocket launch ever in our nation's history, in the world's history.
I was about to say, that giant booster, I thought it was going to explode. The flames, the corona off the end of that rocket, we can roll that too, was awesome.
Amazing what we could do when we're not stifled and sabotaged by deep state actors and people who are supposedly supposed to be our brother.
By the way, the same globalists, not Russians, it was globalists, were the ones in the 70s axed Wernher von Braun's Saturn rocket that's still one of the best. Exactly. They have been sabotaging everything, but now look at that baby, even better.
And not to mention the implications would go back to the economy when it comes to mining comets, when it comes to mining asteroids.
Remember they said the U.S. couldn't have heavy lifters? What's that right there?
Absolutely. And I noticed earlier you were talking about the flamethrowers. So just give you a little insight into Musk's sort of philosophy, because Elon is a really great guy. And, on on a diagram. You guys agree probably on about 80% of things. He's just in a different industry. But when it comes to the flamethrower, this was sort of a throwaway. This was a message to the people in his industry. This is fighting fire with fire. Of course, that wasn't the best in the industry. Of course, it wasn't nothing. It was a throwaway 4-day project. This is a message, and the message is we are going to fight fire with fire. All of the launches, all of the missiles, all of the rockets are under the name Falcon. What is a falcon? It is a bird of prey. What is the oppositions? What are the elites in love with, in bed with? An owl. Moloch. Both birds of prey, one operates in the light, one operates at night. One's operating in the truth, one's operating in deception in the dark. I promise you, that's the meaning behind it. And it gets very, very deep. The implications of space travel are incredible. Trump talked about it in his initial address.
And there was this whole anti-human thing where human space travel's over, and we launch a badass car innovated with an image of a human into deep space. Exactly.
Believe it. And the implications for the economy are incredible. We're aligning this. The country's on its back. The country and the economy's on its back if we would have gone along with the status quo. But that's completely changing. So I need economists. I need all these individuals to understand the system that was occurring is over. This is an adaptive evolution. This is an adaptive humanity. Things are changing, and we are here to see
exactly. Like that top globalist told me, Alex, you're going to adapt to slavery. And we're saying, no, we're going to adapt to victory. We're going to have victory because humans are consciously in control of our evolution. That's what it is to be human.
Exactly. And you have the mainstream media and the CIA, FBI mockingbird narrative given to their assets, which is...
They all want to walk around on red carpets and act like cool people. Instead, they could embrace the stars right now and get out of the way.
And the Patriot, my narrative, the Patriot narrative, our narrative, the InfoWars narrative is duty, honor, country, and deeds above words. The stars are the limit. We're not stopping. It's going to be pro-human. They're wishing for an AI God because of the crimes and the karmatic balance that they have in life. They've done terrible things, and they're wishing that this was a big mistake.
They're trying to get out of hell. They're desperate. They know there's a God. They're scared. Instead of just getting in line with God and everything's going to be given to us, we're already a little G. We're already on a planet. What we envisioned, 30 years ago in the movie Heavy Metal is now in space. Don't they understand? And I don't say this like a Satanist. It's the opposite. Satanist says you'll be your own God. You are God if you're selfish. No. We're already made in the image of God. We're already connected to God. We already spiritually transceive with God. Don't they understand? We're already there. We're already the AI. We're already connected. We're already there. Don't they understand?
They don't understand. They're possessed, they're directed, but what they need to do is repent and regroup because the writing is on the wall. It's going to happen. Trump hasn't been as hardcore as he has, or as he could be, I should say. What he's doing is behind the scenes. He's aligning things. He's taking key positions out of there. But if he wanted to come out day one and start firing people and start really having military tribunals, he could have done that. He doesn't want the panic. He wants them to have the awakening, and they're so brainwashed. They're just so gone in a trance on purpose, in hypnosis by the
exactly.
CIA,
they choose the delusion. They choose the delusion. And that's the thing, is that you're right. Well, Trump is very the opposite of nihilistic. He's very fatalistic in that he's going to do this purely as a good guy. And then if they kill him, he believes that'll supercharge it. And he doesn't want to die. But I've talked to folks that have had the conversations with him. He is going to do this by the book, straight up, and has no fear.
Absolutely, and he believes what he's doing. I believe what he's doing. The reason some of the stuff sounds brash or it sounds sort of irregular, because it is irregular. He's in the moment. He's a witness. He's doing what he thinks is right, and he's doing what he knows is right. This is his moment in time, and he's right.
And that's why the Hollywood pedophiles can't, because they're being exercised. They don't know what to do. Zach, powerful interview. I don't know what we say about this interview. They're going to try to block it. Just get it out to everybody. He's going to come back and take over. We're going to have Tommy Robinson host on the other side from embattled Britannia. I'll be on. Stay with us.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Radio show. I am Millie Weaver, here riding shotgun with Tommy Robinson. Hello, Tommy Robinson.
Hello. How are you?
Doing good, Tommy. So what's going over there in the UK? What's going on?
What's not going on? I thought, first of all, I'd start off by telling your viewers who don't know who I am a little bit about me and why I've become known in this field. My name's Tommy Robinson. I'm from a town called Luton,
which is 30 miles north of London. Look, when I was born in 1982, Luton had one mosque. It now has 35 mosques. Luton has been named by the CIA as the epicenter of all terrorist activity for Europe. As I grew up in one of the most multicultural and diverse towns in Europe. So when I talk about issues, I don't talk about what I've read in books. I talk about life experiences. One of the men who I used to be friends with when I was growing up has now gone on to become an ISIS fighter. Others are in jail for ISIS terrorism. I've witnessed relatives gang raped by Muslim gangs. I've witnessed and lived the decay of a town that's plagued with the link between the left and Islam. And the combination coming together to progress, I've watched my whole entire life. And my changing moment for me come in 2009. In 2009, we had a soldiers' homecoming parade through my hometown of Luton. Now, when the soldiers marched through the town, they were attacked, they were spat on, and they were abused by gangs of radical Muslims. This gang were called Al-Mujahideen. They're an extremist Muslim organisation. Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza with the hook hand, who's now in an American prison. All of these men, their head office base was in my town. So that's just a brief explanation of where I'm from. After this soldiers' homecoming parade, I set up an organisation called the English Defence League. It soon spread. We come out protesting against issues that were affecting us in our towns and cities, issues that the media, the council, the police had all ignored. It spread like a phenomenon. It went across the UK very quick, like a wildfire. And before I knew it, I went from working on a building site. I was never politically minded. I never understood left wing, right wing. I was not interested. I was just a young English man working on a building site, trying to progress my life. And that soldiers' homecoming changed my life. I then set up an organisation. It spread. And from that, I've become known. So I was known as leading the English Defence League. I started talking out against Islam. I then began studying myself for years. And when I started this resistance against what was happening in my town, I expected Islam, I expected followers of Islam to want to kill me, to want to attack me. What I wasn't ready for was the full weight of the state to come down upon me, to persecute my family, to persecute my wife, to harass us, to try and silence us. I suppose I was completely naive. When I started, I thought that all political groups would be open to talking to us. What I found very early, which was a massive shock to me, as I said, I'm from a massively multicultural town. Many of my best friends who I've grown up with and who I love are not white. My town has never suffered racial tensions. We've never seen racial tensions in Luton. We've only seen religious tensions. White and black go like that. And then we have the Islamic community, whether it's white, black or brown. The two are completely segregated through school, through shopping, through where we live. It's two completely polarised communities. And I never understood that. And then when I witnessed the start of my resistance, I was labelled as far-right racist Nazis. And I guess I was very naive. I thought the media's job, and I thought all they done was report the truth. So this whole experience, which brings me to now, has been a complete learning curve. Everything's been a learning curve to understand the media, to understand the globalist agenda, to understand Islam, to understand all of it. And as I said, I think I'm more qualified than anyone in the UK, than any of these so-called experts to talk about this issue, because I've lived it, I've breathed it, I know it, I understand it fully, I know the problems, I know the way the government work with them. So yeah, that brought me up. After leave, I then left the English Defence League. It was a very hard thing, from working on a building site to 6 months later leading the biggest street protest movement Europe has ever seen and trying to control it. It was a nationalistic organisation which attracted people from all different sorts. As much as we tried to combat racists or Nazis getting involved, the media continually told them it was a party that welcomed them. So I made the decision to leave that organisation. I've had multiple death threats through my activism. I've been imprisoned multiple times. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be polishing my halo because I've been no angel growing up. Luton Town is voted as the roughest town in the UK, the most violent town in the UK. It's a real town with real problems. So I fully understand them. I've since left the English Defence League. I then started up the same activism, but with a camera and a microphone. And I wish I'd have thought of it earlier, because the best thing to do is to let everyone see what I see. And since doing that, I've sprung into becoming probably the most watched journalist on the street in the UK. And I'm finally glad one of the good positive things come out of Donald Trump's election was the term fake news. Because all these people who had been lied about me by the media for so many years all began questioning what they've been told. And when they began searching, I've always said, don't listen to what the media say I say, listen to what I say. And that's just a brief intro for the viewers who don't know who I am, who are wondering who I am sitting here, if they haven't listened before. That's who I am. I'll go in the next segments to talk about the problems the UK faces. But I've had a mass apprenticeship in Islam in my hometown of Luton, and also in understanding the lengths, in fact, the shocking lengths, which the reason why I'm glad that I'm sitting here talking to Americans is you need to learn from our mistakes. You need to understand how dark and how bad these politics are going to go. Your clarification would be the deep state, but the lengths they're going to make sure there is no criticism of the current climax, to make sure that people are not standing up, to scare the general population into silence. Right now, people are walking around treading on eggshells because they're scared to speak openly, because they'll lose their jobs, they'll be violently attacked, they'll be branded as racists or extremists. I hope I didn't just go off on a rant, because that's what I'm used to doing. So that's a brief description of who I am.
Well, thank you so much, Tommy. And after this short break, we are going to be back with Tommy Robinson, who is well known and infamous throughout the Great Britain states. So stay tuned, guys. We will be right back.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Hi, my name's Tommy Robinson, and I'm hosting The Alex Jones Show from Luton Town in Great Britain. I'd like to start off, as I've said, the English Defence League, or my activism started in support of our armed forces. Our armed forces is something I hold very dearly, and a lot of the British public do, as I'm fully aware. In fact, I wish that our country recognised the service they give in a similar way to the Americans do. But I want to talk to you about our current recruitment video for the British military. They've spent £1.6 million on a recruitment advert campaign to get people to join the military. What sort of people, I wonder, considering the majority of people who join the British military would be from a working class background. Let me show you here one of the videos. There's 5 videos. They cost £1.6 million. Let me show you one of the videos that have just gone out across our nation to recruit for the British Army.
واجعلني مقيم صلاتي ومن ذرياتي ربنا تقبل الله ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
He's taken his boots off in a war zone. That's our recruitment video. He's taken his boots off in a war zone. The other soldiers are then having to protect him whilst he washes himself and then prays. The radio goes and they say, hold on, like, wait a minute, stop the war, someone's praying. This is an embarrassment. It's ridiculous. And this isn't just one thing. When we have if we want to recruit more Muslims into our army, which there's a video of our ex-Prime Minister David Cameron saying that British Parliament is too white, the British military is too white, everything's too white. Funny enough, we're in a country that's 90% white. It's not shocking at all, okay? But they don't like that. So they want to recruit more Muslims into the army. 4 times as many British Muslims went to fight for ISIS than have ever joined the British military. 4 times as many. 4 times. Now, this latest recruitment drive, as I said, it's cost £1.6 million. I'll show you a leaflet I'm holding now. This is a leaflet from our Royal Navy, okay? Transgender awareness, a guide for naval service people, diversity and inclusion, with the badge of the Royal Navy and our Royal Marines, our most fiercest fighters. This whole leaflet is about coming out and being a transgender in the British military. I believe that if they feel like a woman, or if they're a man and they feel like a woman, they get an automatic month off. They can then come back into work as a woman and go stay in a different dorm. Since I put these videos out, and since putting these videos out, I asked for a request. I requested members of the British Armed Forces to contact me with their stories. I'm going to do a full show tomorrow, reading their letters. We've had one who has a transgender male, female, whatever, lady boy, working within them. Now, he's on constant suicide watch. He has to have 3 officers around him at all times when they're out. These sort of stories, it's an absolute disservice to our military. It's putting other people in harm's way. And it's an attempted, they want to show diversity in our military for no reason at all. If I show you the next, we've got another clip now. I'll possibly talk over it. But I'll show you the next video, which is our campaign to get people to join our military. Let's have a quick look at the other areas they're looking to recruit from.
I grew up with brothers and I've always played sports, but I still thought the army was dominated by men and it wasn't for me. I decided to get a normal job. Men at work would often talk over me.
So this is showing women can join the army, and it shows how the men are the big bad guys.
And I joined the army. It was totally different. All that matters is you're good at your job. I recently commissioned as an officer, and now I lead a team of 30 women and men. It feels good to finally have my voice heard.
Let's be realistic. The majority of people who are going to join the army are men. So as campaigns go, there's another one coming up now. Is the other one on there? There's another one coming up now, which shows the next group that they wish to recruit from. Is that video on there? Negative. It's not on the other link. Okay. Well, the next group, can you send me? The next group they're trying to recruit from, it shows a gay man in the army. This is their recruitment drive. It shows a gay man in the army, and he talks about his boyfriend and how he come out in the army. Can I be gay? This video here.
Growing up, I really had my heart set on joining the army. My brother was out in Afghanistan. Hearing his experiences, that's when I knew I wanted to join as a medic. I was really worried about whether I'd be accepted, but within days, I was more than confident about being who I was. I'm not afraid to talk about having a boyfriend. I thought I'd have to hide it, but once you've done it, you think, well, why did I make it such a big thing for so long?
And so that shows that it's like the army was homophobic, but clearly it's not. I've spoken to people in the army who said there's always been gay people in the army. Why make a massive deal out of it? Why make a massive deal out of it? But these are recruitment. So far, you've seen recruitment for Muslims. We've seen a recruitment for women. We've seen a recruitment for gays. Now we'll show you one more, but if you can get the next one up, the next recruitment video is, can I cry in the army? Can I cry in the army? And it starts off, oh, this is another Islamic one. There was 2 Islamic ones. This is another Islamic recruitment video that you're showing there. And again, it shows everything to be bad against the Muslim. It has a big white boss who's looking down upon him. And he says, I've never been able to practice my faith, but I'm welcomed here in the army. And it's just, if you're trying to recruit the British Army, then where's the recruitment for us? Where's the recruitment for normal young men full of testosterone who want to go in the army to fight? They want to go in to be the best. The British Army are trying to get rid of the slogan, be the best, because it's too elitist. They want to get rid of it. Now, if you compare this, I'll ask any of your viewers to go on the Chinese army recruitment video. Go on Russia's recruitment video. It's men with six packs, with face paint on them, shooting people in the head, firing rockets, driving tanks. It's adrenaline packed. It's what young men who are going to go out and fight. These men are supposed to go out and get bullets fired at them and die. This is the Chinese one. These men are going to do, and we want them to have a corner to cry in, or we want them to have someone to talk to if they're gay, or that's the reality of it. And it's an embarrassment to our army. And then I ask the motives of why they're doing this. I'm aware that the British Army, I believe, want to lose another 10,000 people. Now, through this campaign that they've launched, people are dropping out every day. Maybe that's why they've done it. But it's a complete embarrassment to our British military, and so many people serving for it are so angered and frustrated. There's no need. This is, do I have to be a superhero? This is actually the one that shows the man crying in a little while. So when you compare it to what they want our military to be like in the future, they basically want transgender Muslims leading our military. And it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to our country. And to be honest, the people who are going to join the army come from the same background I come from. They should be going into the poorest schools and the most underperforming schools in the UK and make men out of those children. Give them a real career and opportunity. Not focusing on gay people or focusing on all these minorities when they don't need to. Focus on everyone from every background.
Frank in North Carolina, thanks for holding so long. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alec, I just have to say something, man. It seems like every time I turn on your broadcast, you're bragging. It just gets old, man.
I'm going to shut you down right now, okay? We're taking calls about your nomination. Do you understand they're having congressional hearings trying to shut us down? Do you understand I'm ringing the alarm? If that was happening to anybody else, I'd be freaked out. I mean, what's it going to take? Us being shut down? Is that what you want, Frank?
You know what, Alec?
Hey, put him on pause again. Hey, Frank, do you understand it's not bragging to say we are the tip of the spear, we're under attack, we need your help? As much begging as I do, we can barely pay the bills and grow in the face of this. I'm not going to just stop growth and let them start pushing us backwards. You understand? I need your help, Frank. I need your help, Frank.
Go to InfoWarsStore.com right now and help fund the InfoWars.
Do you understand? I need your help, Frank. Free press needs your help, Frank.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Whilst I was just talking about Muslims joining the British Army, I want to take this opportunity to tell you a story about a certain Muslim who was a captain in the British Armed Forces, who went to Sandhurst Military School. He was put up on a pedestal in our country. He was friends with David Cameron at the time, who was our Prime Minister. He was asked by David Cameron what seat he wants on the cabinet, and he made an approach to me. Now, when you all know of Sadiq Khan, who is our Muslim MP, who's our Muslim mayor, and I have a problem trusting people who are getting in these positions. I have a problem because of what's happened in the past. Afzal Amin approached me when I was leading the English Defence League. He approached me and offered me a financial agreement. He offered me cash. He offered me money. He offered me money that I would never have to worry about my finances again. Now, I'll explain in a minute what he offered me to do, what he wanted me to do. But the reason he'd done this is because Muslims and Islam has bought its way through my country. It's bought our politicians. It's bought our police leaders. And then it's trying to buy our people. Now, we've always said, or when I led the movement I always said, you may buy our politicians, you'll never buy us. There is nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. And we love our country and we won't sell it out. Now, Afzal Amin approached me and he asked me he asked if he paid me if I'd set up a demonstration in his constituency. And then if he steps in, if I'd sit with him and cancel the demonstration because I respect him, because he served for 10 years as a captain in the British Army. Now, if I show you, we've got a video here. I'll show you the news expose. This was the biggest news story in my country, weeks before the election. Now, I never got thanked for this, but if you watch the news story, it'll give you a brief minute of it, which will be explaining what happened.
He seemed to be the Conservatives' dream candidate, a Muslim British Army officer for 11 years who'd done tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. This was Afzal Amin speaking out against extremism after the murder of Lee Rigby.
We won't give in to this extremist narrative, whether it comes from one element or another.
Contrast that to the man apparently filmed seemingly making Machiavellian deals with the far-right English Defence League.
If you were to announce a second march, say in early May, that you're going to come back and do another march about the mosque, about the planning commissions, whatever else, etc.
He wanted the EDL to fake a march, only for him to then pretend he had heroically negotiated its cancellation. In exchange, the EDL were offered the chance to mainstream their views once he's elected.
If I win my election, in Parliament, you've got a very strong, unshakable ally.
When I'm being offered this, it's not for sale. My integrity is not for sale. The English Defence League is not for sale.
For a number of years, Dudley has been the site of bitter dispute and tension.
I'll explain the rest. But so what happened after this? Once I exposed him, I wore hidden cameras. I went to a meeting with a man who told me in the meeting he's not looking at being an MP. He's not happy with that. He's looking at number 10. He was a captain in the British Army for 10 years. He had support coming from Qatar. When he gets into the Dudley area, Qatar were going to pump tens of millions of pounds into that area to solve the jobless problems, to build the community. So when he's looked upon again, he would have solved all of Dudley's problems with the help of Qatar, of course. And when I exposed him, and I went to a meeting with him. When I went to a meeting with him, he turned up with his two financial backers, and they were both Muslim gangsters. Okay, they sat down. They talk about one of their friends was shot dead, and then when I said, "Who are you Conservatives?" Because it's so Afzal Amin was standing for the Republicans, and these two men, when I was sitting talking to them, they were followers of the Democrats. They were the opposite party. So I said, if you support the Democrats, why are you funding him to get into the Conservatives? to get into Conservatives? And they said, because once we have our man in Parliament, then if there's any problems, he can sort them out. Problems with the police. These men actually owned hotels. Their hotels have been targeted by the police because young girls were being groomed and raped. This is when I started realising just how dirty our politics are. It was these men that offered me money. And then when I exposed it, then the media went into overdrive looking into Afzal Amin. What did they find? They found that a year before he joined the British Army, before he became a captain, he had wrote leaflets and distributed them, saying that the Mujahideen, the Islamic fighters, will keep in their enclaves in Britain. And when the war comes, they'll come out and they'll attack the Kafar. This is his words. He was a radical extremist Muslim, and he infiltrated our army. He spent 10 years as a captain, and he nearly had a seat on our cabinet, in our government, and maybe one day would have been the leader of our government. And no one batted an eyelid. They all wanted their picture taken with him. In fact, what Afzal Amin told me, which is all on tape recording, he told me that when David Cameron walked into the hall, everyone was trying to say hello to him. At that time, David Cameron was our Prime Minister. Everyone was trying to say hello to him. He ignored them all and went straight up to Afzal and said, "Hello, Afzal," because Afzal's a Muslim and he wanted that Muslim in his parliament, in his team, because they needed one. This is how, and at that time then, there was no thank you to us for exposing an undercover operative for a foreign entity within our government. I'm fully aware of many people who have infiltrated the American government, especially the last Barack Obama's government. But we have currently the same situation has happened now in our capital city. We had it with the mayor of Tower Hamlets, who was a radical extremist, who got into a position where he was in charge of £1 billion of our budget because he was voted in. This is how our politics is working. This is how your American politics will change. the Islamic community becomes so powerful with their block voting because they're all hardened in certain areas. We have another extremist group in the UK called MEND. Their leader of MEND is on record as saying we will use democracy only to implement Sharia. He's on record as saying that British military are legitimate targets. He's on record as saying many extremist things. Jeremy Corbyn, who is the leader of the opposition in the UK, shared a stage with this man a number of months ago. In the transcripts I got from a mosque in Greater Manchester, one of MEND's leading representatives told the congregation, all political groups will work with us. We can now sway 30 seats in politics. 30 seats. So it doesn't matter how extreme they are. It doesn't matter how radical they are. They will gain them power. That is what they did. We had an election. Jeremy Corbyn gained 30 seats. The Labour Party in the UK have become the most anti-Semitic, anti-freedom party there is. And they side every time with the Islamic community. And for another example of why that is, in my hometown of Luton, the projected growth forecast by the year 2030, these are government statistics, they're not Tommy Robinson statistics. The Islamic community, the Bangladeshi and Pakistani community are going to increase by 70 to 77%. The black and white community will increase by 1.2 to 1.4%. So Labour understand fully, due to the birth rate and the demographical change of this great nation, that Islam is the future. And that's why we're being sold out left, right and centre from one end of this country to the other. And Americans really need to understand just how quickly that happens. I've watched in my hometown where one area you can be in and you look at it a few years later and you think, what has happened here? It's that quick. With a birth rate of 5.6 children. That's on average in the UK, the Muslim community. 1.3 children we have on average. I ask every imam and Muslim I meet, how many children do you have? My local imam has 14 children with 3 wives. That's what's happening, and it's happening like that. So as a warning to America, unless you address, there's things we can do to address this, but we don't. We could limit the benefit system to 2 children, because at the minute, we're paying for this, which is insane. We're all working very hard, paying lots of tax, so that they can have lots of babies, so that they can change the culture and the way our country looks and the future of our nation. Rant over. We're going into a commercial now, and we'll get back afterwards on the fake mainstream media.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.